to the Hawks Nest live stream show. We're coming at you on a Sunday. Here is the offseason is still due to begin here a couple weeks out. The rest of the NFL season is still good to go. And as you guys requested, I figured we'd do a little bit of streaming here during the divisional round and also talk some Seahawks shop. I'm going to be doing a show, also a live stream show tomorrow, kind of built around a recent John Schneider interview. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. We'll be kind of covering that more in depth. So be on the lookout for that as well. But I figured we'd pop in and do a quick show today, see if the Purdy magic can continue here for the 49ers or if the Cowboys can indeed upend them. I am a little bit late, of course, getting this stream. I'm sorry about that, folks. Been having some things on my end I need to get taken care of this week. You sprint hard and fast through the season, just kind of put your head down, and then get into the off season. You need to start kind of taking care of some odds and ends that you have left untied, however you would put that. But I hope everybody's having a great Sunday afternoon. It'll be a very just kind of laid back show today, not with a lot of specific things. Again, I'm going to talk a little bit tomorrow. I've got some sound bites for you from John Schneider in a recent interview he gave with Wyman and Bob. And of course, John doesn't talk a lot. So when he does speak, we do want to kind of listen and see if he's got some potential nuggets he dropped. And he did indeed drop some nuggets in that. So we will be covering that tomorrow. See what can happen here in this game. It's been kind of a lame sauce divisional round. Not a very many close games here to begin things. And we'll see if this one can change the measure here, as the early game was a kind of a complete runaway there for the Bengals. And boy, the Bills just isn't quite the time there for them, is it? When is going to be their year, you wonder. You feel bad for them on that, but you also have to feel pretty impressed by the Cincinnati Bengals and the job that they did to go into Buffalo like that and win that football game and win it so convincingly. I think it tells you a lot about how good of a team this Bengals team truly is, because let's remember that this isn't just simply them good right now with Burrow. They are the Super Bowl loser, which of course, historically speaking, usually means you have a rougher road to climb on that next ensuing year. Sort of like you've kind of lost a little bit of your energy, a little bit of your steam. The wind has been removed from your sails. So they've bounced back this year. They look like a contender there. They're going to go right toe-to-toe again with Kansas City, and Kansas City is going to come into that game with Patrick Mahomes having a high ankle sprain despite the fact they won. We'll see how that impacts him. I do remember Russell having that injury back, I think it was 16 or 17, and it definitely impacted his level of productivity. It reduced him down quite significantly as a player. So hopefully we can get a little more, Mahomes can maybe bounce back, or Burrow might be on the road again to go into back-to-back Super Bowls here. And boy, what a quarterback that kid is. Snowy environment down there, making it work. The Niners are up 3-0 here on the Cowboys early on. The Cowboys are driving down the football field. I don't know if I'll be doing as much play-by-play today. We're just going to be kind of covering the action and watching a little bit. I want to interact with you guys on the chat and talk a little bit. But we'll see if this Cowboy team can make this work. Dak's looking okay. He's got the team driving a little bit here out the gate, so that's a good initial sign. Megan Gock Rogers says, "What's up, Megan? It's good to see you." My lady from Daninda says, "Not sure I'll be staying, B. Still not the best after what happened." I understand, Megan, and I would never require it. So if you feel that way, I do understand. I completely get it. David Phillips, this is an epic defensive battle. It definitely could be. We'll see. It certainly start that way out the gate here with the first quarter and kind of the both teams feeling each other out back and forth a bit. But I think it does probably have the makings of that. Nitro Hawk, how you doing, man? Master Chief, what's up? Rob Terrell says, Purdy reminds me of a 2012 Russell Wilson. I guess I could see it without the arm strength, I think. That's that would be the key difference. And I did forget the kitty. Let me get my cat over here. We need you over here. There we go. Okay. The star has truly entered the program here. The star of the show is here. Dimitri Feldman, how you doing, man? It's good to see you. Okay, you can't have all that space. You can have a lot of it, just not all. That's where I should prepare beforehand. It's been kind of one of those weeks. Just can't quite get everything synced up. You know what I mean? But I could see it, Rob, in general terms. Looks like we got Zeke Elliott stretching for the first down marker there. Some good effort. Good effort. And I've got 12:45 on the clock on my game if you're looking to sync up, pause or whatnot, and go down that realm of it. Nice blitz by the Niners. Surprised. That's the thing with the Niners. They come with the blitz, and then you go to hit your hot route, and they've got a defender right there to make the tackle. It's really good defense. Herbicide says, I got Eagles. Kitty goes meow. She does go meow. Give me meow. Give me one. There we go. We got one. Herbicide, like Joey B. That dude's cool. Joey B? Megan says, high ankle sprains are uncomfortable, but not that painful as I've done one and was able to walk carefully on it a week later, but never had to run on it. So hoping Mahomes is okay. Yeah, it's one of those ones that they used to call, Megan, I think back in the day, an actual broken leg is what they used to reference it as. And then it got changed, I think, from a medical standpoint to high ankle sprain. But it does seem like it does. I mean, certainly Mahomes yesterday was hindered by it. And it is one of those injuries that doesn't necessarily recover like a week later. You're going to go into ice baths and you're going to go into the oxygen chambers. It's not really going to necessarily come back around that fast. I think it's going to hinder him. And he is a guy that does rely on his mobility. I mean, he's not a supremely mobile guy, but he does like to improvise. And that could definitely, as it did with Russell, at least, Megan, it removed some of that improvisation from his game and really required him to fit within the constraints of the offense. And he did kind of struggle a little bit with that. Not to mention, it did sort of impinge the accuracy, too, in the throwing motion. Because the throwing motion, certainly, if you've got a high ankle sprain, is probably pretty unnaturally feeling when you're trying to throw the football with it, I would think. But it'll be interesting. Could be the equalizer for the Bengals. And the Jaguars did give that Chiefs team all they could take. We got a 4th and 1 here by the Cowboys, and they run a fly sweep to CD Lamb and get it. Nice job. Yeah, nice effort by Zeke and by CD Lamb there too. That thing wasn't necessarily covered. He had to break a tackle with a nice spin move on Tufunga, on the All-Pro Tufunga. All-Pros were a little weird this year. Henry M. Yo, fam. ¿Cómo está? Bien. ¿Y tú? All right, so the Niners are knocking on the red zone door here. A little read option keeper, Dak. Dak's out in the open field. Dak taking it all the way down to the 2-yard line. Nice run there by Dak Prescott. Oh, how about Dak still showing he's pretty spry. Starting out the game 8 of 10 here too on top of it. So good decision making from the kid. Bosa was right back there, but very well done. Nice play call. Nice play call. Henry M., who are we rooting for? I think we got to root for the Cowboys. I don't like ever rooting for the Cowboys, but the thought process of how the Niner fans are going to be if they win this game and already having a year of the Rams fans pumping their chest out and being like, yeah, take that. It's like, I don't want to see it with the 49ers too as well. Quick throw into the end zone here on a play action pass, and he hits Dalton Schultz for a touchdown. Cowboys up 6-3. There we go. Shane Germany, Bengals dominate all 3 phases of the ball. Hope they beat the Chiefs and win Super Bowl. They most certainly deserve it. Got shafted by the NFL. Oh, they did, yes, with that scheduling issue thing and how all that ended up working out because they didn't get the chance to get this as a home game here because of that whole DeMar Hamlin situation. Yeah, I'd feel okay about them getting in. I'd feel okay about them winning it. If they, as I said, people ask me who I'd like to see if my Hawks aren't going to get in, and that extra point's blocked, by the way, so this will remain 6-3. And I always say, I'd just like to see a long-suffering fan base rewarded. It can be the Bengals or the Lions or the Vikings or the Bills. But, one of those teams that's just been slogging away for years in anonymity, could use a little shine. I think it would help out that franchise in those local areas to get something like that in a way that could kind of awaken the fan base in the way that it could. And certainly with Cincinnati, you'd hope that fan base is starting to get awakened, but they've had a lot of things done with that ownership group over the years that's kind of subtly pushed those fans away. And so they're hopefully bringing them back to the fold, and I'd be okay with it. I'd be good with it. David Phillips says, please God, give us a defense. That would be nice. Yeah, that'd be a good thing for us to be able to secure this offseason. And I definitely think that it's going to be something that they do address. This more from Coach Carroll than I would say that's from anything Schneider said in his recent interview. But Carroll seems to have recognized pretty clearly they've got to get better up front up there. Got to get some better dogs up there. And that's the place I would expect them to attack in a huge fashion. Not just sort of like one guy or two guy. I mean, you're going to see, I think, 3, maybe 4 guys added over on that, on just the defensive line alone. It was a great block by Schultz there to be able to get free on that. Go Hawks 05, you're right. The Hawks will be back, man. They will be back. Yeah, Mark kicker. Oof. Megan, I have the Niners here. Yes, I know, but will not be upset if the Cowboys win. If only to hear from Jerry Jones laughing out loud. Oh, Jerry's going to be, man. Let me tell you something about this now, Megan. All right? I'm going to turn Australia into Cowboy fans, okay? We're already America's team. Now we're going to become Australia's team, okay? Y'all going to forget about rugby once you see your Cowboys win. When they're hosting that Lombardi trophy now, okay? You're all going to become Texans. All right. That's how it works out here in Dallas. We're America's team. Cameron says, are you and Brendan doing a show this week? I think we'll probably try to line something up, Cameron. I got to be honest. I got to the end of the season and it was head down and just pushing every last bit of content I could kind of get out. And I sort of did exhaust myself a little bit on that one. So I kind of needed a week here this past week to just kind of catch the breath a little bit, get the footing, get the plan in place for how I want to kind of go forward over the next couple of months with the content and whatnot. So yeah, we will, I think we'll be trying to do something on that. I've got a couple of ideas. I know he's texted me on some stuff. I haven't gotten back to him, but I just kind of checked out this last week. You ever one of those weeks where you just kind of, you just kind of check out and put the feet up and do very little in the way of productivity. I worked on a couple of videos, but nothing too serious. Jim Everett the Great says Purdy's been exposed. Well, we'll see. That's the magic of Purdy, right? He bounces back. He's got that the bountiful spirit that cannot be impinged for too long. You can't stop Brock Purdy. You can only hope to contain him. Donnie Pearson at the Hawks Nest. Hello, Brandon and all. Hope everyone is well this afternoon. I'm doing magical myself, Donnie. Hope you're doing well too. Birdie dropping back to throw. He's not seeing it, trying to scramble around a little bit. See, this is where I can see a little bit of the Wilson thing, where he is definitely fleet of foot back there, and not just being real quick, but also knowing the right time to cut and get around a defender, playing the angles right, turning it back around on the guy with where their momentum is going and knowing just the right way to go opposite it a little bit. Just the feel of the back pocket for scrambling around a little bit. Steve Bailey says this kicker has the worst luck. It happens, man. It happens. And boy, George Kittle was wide open on that play. Whew. He throws it to Kittle and he might still be running. 2nd and 9. Purdy 5 of 8, 62 yards here to begin things. And they're going to go with Debo Samuel. Oh, yeah. The Cowboys got this thing. It's real for the Cowboys at this point because Debo's just straight lining up as a running back now. That's when you know it's getting real for them. Adam Barney says Seahawks have been a long, weak team despite winning games for approximately 8 years. It's going to be a little bit in discussion on tomorrow's stream that I'm going to do, Adam, which is in regards to the fact that John Schneider in the interview, he talked about at KJR, speaks a little bit about that very thing, about how, we've been a consistent winning organization and that's of high value to us. And, it's a little bit of a phrase that kind of makes me bristle a little bit. Not that I don't like having a team being a consistent winning team, but if you're a consistent winning team that doesn't do anything in the playoffs on the end of that consistency over the last 7 or 8 years, then I ask, what is the value of the consistency? And then I further would have asked, and this would have been the question I would have loved to see Wyman or Bob ask as a follow-up to this with John, to say, John, your consistent winning deal really is established by your guys' 2 and 3 year plan and remaining always relatively conservative so you can keep the door open on any given season to being that contending team. Is there ever, though, a year that maybe you were in the window of contention that you could have pushed a little bit harder? You could have pushed a little bit stronger. You could have sacrificed some future draft capital to get the return now, to get a little bit stronger now, to get your potential for that given year a little bit further ahead. And I would have liked to have seen him ask that. If John looks at maybe a couple of seasons in retrospect, especially when you were in Russell Wilson's prime, if not, maybe you could have put that pedal down to the metal just a little bit further, got a little bit more off of it then at that point. And I don't know, but I agree with you, Adam. It's not as much, it's of some value to me, but it shouldn't be. The problem is that it gets placed in context when you say, well, we've been a consistent winner. That's to say, well, we have 18 where we're in the conference championship, and then there was 19 where we just got in the playoffs, but we lost. There was 20 we missed the playoffs, then there's 21 we got in the playoffs, and then we won a game, got to the second round, then lost. No, as I've said before, the Jaguars have more playoff wins than your Seahawks since 2017, and no one looks at the Jacksonville Jaguars and goes, oh, what a consistent winning organization. And at the end of the day, this is about being elite and trying to aspire towards that. And that's my worry with it, is that you get a little bit into the aspirations towards being the consistent winner, and they pull a little bit from the aspirations towards being a Super Bowl winner. Henry M says, there are rumors we are trading down with the Panthers at 9. We get their first round next year and a third this year. That sounds about right as far as compensation goes, Henry. So it certainly is a rumor that has at least some bearing within, I think, feasible reality. That's long been what I have said, is that my preference on this is to move back. I think if Jalen Carter's there, you got to take him. But if he's off, if Anderson's off, and you're sitting there at 5, which is probably more of a likely scenario than anything else, then at that point you do want to trade back, I think, ideally, because the difference of player that you get from 5 to 9 is not going to be so significant that it's not worth gathering back in a first and a third. And so, yeah, I would be very much in favor of doing that. Let's also remember too, if they don't get their quarterback this year and you're looking at stacking a first next year up, and you may even get another pick even beyond that next year too, and on top of it, now you're starting to get some ammunition for next year if there is a quarterback in that class that you do want to trade up for. Cali Tangerine, hi everyone. Rooting for the Eagles to beat whoever wins this one. It's fair enough. First down run here by, it looks like Elijah Mitchell. It doesn't go for much, but there's a flag on the play. Already down to 5:36 here in the second quarter. Donnie Pearson, whoop, touchdown Cowboys. Touchdown Cowboys. How about them Cowboys now? How about them Cowboys? That's how we do it out here in Dallas. That's how we do it. Megan says, I totally get that, B. Haven't been in the right mental space for streaming after what happened. Yeah, we all need kind of a little bit of break from time to time, Megan, Everybody needs a little bit of a, breather with it. And I plan on going really hard this offseason. And, it's, you're in this land at times of, that does have a lot of, especially seeing other chats and other places, Megan, there's a lot of places in football country where it does open the door to a level of toxicity at times. And, it is a bit of the lay of the land, and sometimes all you can do is just kind of take a break from it because, there's only so much you can change within it a bit in the way some people will be. All right, Purdy on 1st and 20 just kind of throws it over there to Kittle. It's not going to do much. Nate Dwyer says, Purdy's good, but I'm very much enjoying Dallas harassing him. It's a different story when the kid's under pressure as a rookie, man. Rookies don't process that pressure as well as he will when he's 5-6 years down the line. It only comes with experience and age. And it's good to see the Cowboys are a little more, it seems like, forcing the issue here with Purdy rather than the Hawks were with sort of more of a sitting back kind of approach to things. Again, just bringing a lot of guys up near the line of scrimmage for Purdy. It's not even like right now you're seeing a situation where there's a lot of, like, they're bringing extra guys like the 8th man in the box. You're just seeing 7 defenders being moved really close up near to the box, and it's making Purdy uncomfortable. He just calls a timeout there. It's a bit of what I was talking about, what I would have liked to see in our Seahawks game. Make him uncomfortable. It's not about you bringing the blitzes. It's just showing all those guys that's making him have to do some extra processing, making him have to do some extra thinking, to then, hopefully get out of his game, get out of just having his natural progression through the reads and whatnot. Megan says, this is what the Hawks should have done to Purdy. Bingo, Megan. Bingo. this is the approach that you would apply to a Purdy. This is the way you would have gone a second go with it. So Henry M., thank you for the $2 donation, man. Very kind of you. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. He says, thanks for what you do. Oh, it's my pleasure, man. And I do love doing this more than ever. All I did is I just ended up grinding. I redlined it a little bit there at the end of the year with getting into the playoffs. So I got to my red line. I had to go back in the engine, kind of blow the engine out a little bit, get some new spark plugs in. It takes a week. It takes a week in the shop, but then we get back. But I love this, man. I've had so much fun this year with y'all, and it was such an awesome year from so many different levels. Watching the team play, the enjoyment of the games this year was at such a much more higher level than it's been for me in recent years past. And how can you not be just tremendously excited about the direction of this team and where we're going in the future? Appreciate you, Henry. Norse fan, as a Hawks fan living in Cincinnati, who should I root for in this one? Well, then you would be kind of a quasi Cincinnati fan too. So then you'd want the best matchup for the Bengals. I think you'd want the Cowboys to win. I think the 49ers would be a tougher matchup. Yeah. Because the 49ers would be able to, squeeze down some of the zones that Burrow wants to throw into. And Burrow's one of the best quarterbacks out there right now, no doubt about it. He throws with better anticipation than any quarterback in the sport, I think. And his accuracy on top of that's top notch, and those things go together, like peanut butter and jelly. But you also can maybe get around Burrow, I think, if you're able to generate a pass rush with a front four and drop as many guys into coverage as you can to squeeze those zones. I think the Niners are a little more better suited to do that. But I don't want to see the Niners going to the Super Bowl. I just don't. I'm sorry, Niner fans that may be in the chat, but you have to understand that this is a hard thing that's tough. And if your people hadn't been so talky with it through the whole last 2 weeks ago, maybe I'd be more in favor of you guys. I'd be more in, but we had to deal with a good amount of, and hey, we had it coming. That's the way these rivalries work. I guess you're going to talk your stuff, but not going to make me root for you. Herbicide says, I hate them both with a passion. Yeah, it's hard to root for anybody on this one. I think Herbicide puts it best with that. I think he does. Defender of Logic, watching the playoffs has led me to appreciate the trenches even more. Games are won at the line of scrimmage. Most of these top playoff teams have great O and defensive lines. Bingo. You knocked it out of the park with that one, Defender Logic, in that comment. Absolutely. That's a second decker, man. I've learned the same thing from these playoffs. I'm watching right now, the Cowboys harassing Purdy with front four, getting him to throw it away. Yeah, it's you are seeing that. And this is where Defender of Logic, this is one of my little pet theories about where the game is going more towards. And in my opinion, it's going more towards back to the value of the line play. And that's always been a part of football. It's never gone away, but there's a little bit of this shift now, right? Analytics say, oh no, now you build your defenses back to front rather than front to back. And offenses are all about just get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, make him a point guard, but at the end of the day, you got to go build it the old-fashioned way. And that's you build a great offensive line, you build a great defensive line, and you are on the way. That should be your beginning steps, even before you get to quarterback, in my opinion. Even before you've arrived to that spot where we may have just landed our quarterback and the Niners kick a field goal to tie this up 6-6. You may just land on your quarterback like we did with Geno, where he just suddenly kind of develops and he goes. But you want all those things in place first. And yeah, the playoffs have taught me that very same thing. And I think that it's where the game is going. We've been in kind of this quarterback era. It's not that quarterbacks are going to stop mattering or that they're not going to be every bit the important part of the team that they've always been, but that there's just now more of it's almost more of an acknowledgement of the fact that we've forgotten a little bit about, in general, the NFL has forgotten a little bit about the value of the line play and about how much that can impact it. They get all caught up on the bright, shiny wheels and the receivers and the tight ends and getting your cornerbacks that can lock down. But at the end of the day, you got to get it done in the trenches. And we lost too many football games this year on both sides of the line. Both. It's hard to win if you lose on one side of the line in the trenches. To lose on both, multiple weeks over, I think it speaks to how good the team was in other places that we get to the playoffs, despite having that as sort of a hindering part of this team throughout most of the year. Norse fan, I would think you'd want your division to be the best. I mean, I would, but you got to remember, then I've got an offseason of streams and draft coverage where it's going to be Niner fans coming in like, what's it matter who you pick? We still have the Lombardi over here. What? Oh, you guys got your draft picks? That's cool. That's cool. I'm sorry. I got lost with my reflection in the trophy. I just, I've got this sixth trophy in my case now. So I'm caught up in the spectacle of that. What you guys are picking? Oh, you're having a draft? That's cute. It's going to be stuff like that. And I'm just going to be like, I can't really say nothing. That's the part that sucks when I'm losing. I have to just be like, just I'll be like, Megan, ban him. Ban him, Megan. It'll be horrible. It'll be awful. We don't want to see it. Riverside says, who does everybody want to draft first? I think there's probably a bit of a tie there on that. I could run a poll here today. We could run a poll on this one. I think Stroud's off the board. We'd have to run the poll like, who would you prefer better? I kind of like running a poll with Jalen Carter, Anderson. We'll go Levis. I might put Bryce Young in there just to see where, just to get a pulse check of people. You know what I mean? Just to get a little pulse check of where everybody is at on that one. Because I kind of like to see where people's opinion. I think I know where people land on Young overall, but the poll will tell the tale. The poll will tell the mighty tale. Herbicide says, I'd be cool with Tyree. I'm working on a Tyree Wilson video. It's going to be my next draft breakdown video on the channel. So I'm going through and watching his tape pretty closely right now. Seems like he really took some steps forward this year. So the first bit of tape I was watching, and I've already watched some of it, but I'm really going in deep now because I'm, of course, looking for cut-ups and stuff. But it does seem like he took a real big step forward this past year, and he still is a project, still in development. But my goodness, big, long, pretty quick. He's just got to get a general feel for the sport. Just needs to be a bit better. That's just where he needs some seasoning. Cowboys are taking over here, 6-6, 3:38 to go on my clock. Dak Prescott in shotgun. He's got 3 wide receivers and a tight end. Dropping back to throw. He's going to throw this out to Zeke Elliott in the flat. Elliott's going to get this upfield and take a late hit out of bounds, which should be a flag. And it is. Yeah, that's blatant. Can't do that. He was a step out of bounds when he got jacked up. Gonna have to call that one. Greenlaw getting spicy. I was going to push that ball up there. But Tyree's good, man. Tyree's a good player. And I think he has grown over, for me, Herbicide, maybe even over Miles Murphy at this point. I think he is. Because with Murphy, with Tyree, you go, it's refinement and it just needs more development. With Murphy, you kind of go, okay, where's his motor? Why is he disappearing so much? Does he kind of play with that fire? All right, Dak already on the other side of the field, on the Niners side of the field. The give's going to be to Ezekiel Elliott. Boy, he has lost his burst. Elliott does not have his burst. Those running backs wear down fast, man. You just can't pay him. Maybe you can pick him high, but you can't pay him. As he ran hard there, and he got you could see those legs churning as hard as he could get him to get to the edge there on that outside zone run, and he just couldn't get there. He got a 3-yard gain out of it, but that's probably with a fastback more of like an 8 or 9 yard gain. All right, Dak back in shotgun, 2 wide to the far side of the field. See, he's got a man goes in motion here. He's going to throw a little. Dak held onto that one for a little while for no reason. That was weird. Dimitri Feldman, Brian Breeze. He's a great player too, Dimitri. I expect him probably to go in the top 12 picks, no doubt. And we may very well be the team that ends up landing on him. His last year's tape versus this year's tape was so much better. Of course, this was prior to an ACL tear, so it's explainable why maybe he wasn't as strong this year. But we've seen with other players, especially on the defensive tackle position, that having a torn ACL is not necessarily going to hinder them long-term as a prospect. And that there's guys that have had torn ACLs in college who bounced back. The kid Richardson with the tight ends being the case when he was with Mississippi State. tore his ACL, was drafted with a torn ACL, and in the second round, no less, and has gone on to become a Pro Bowl player. Even with right now Breezy, you know, he's beyond the ACL tear, so it's just a matter of he's kind of had his recovery season. I think there's a lot of reason to believe that he would be able to bounce back to more of what he was in his prior year. It's very odd though with that Clemson defense. There's a lot of guys on that defense that are supremely talented that are underperforming, and I don't know what to make of it. Trenton Simpson this year didn't take a step forward. Murphy didn't take a step forward. Breezy didn't take a step forward, probably because of the injury. There's one other guy I was trying to think of. There was one other guy in that defense. Was it KJ? Let me look it up so I don't guess. I don't have to guess. Who was it? KJ Henry. You know, KJ Henry's going to go to KJ Henry's like uninspiring pretty much on the film for the most part. And he's going to probably go to the senior day and kick butt and have a great combine. But another guy on that Clemson defense, you go, you're supposed to take a step forward in your final year, boys. You take a step forward. You don't plateau. Oh, we got a fourth down here for the Cowboys. Dak back in shotgun. He's got a 3 wide. Look here. He's changing the play at the line of scrimmage. Plenty of time on the clock. 2:13 to go here in the second quarter. Niners dropping back into coverage. Just a 4-man front. Dak realizes it. Bree changes the play again at the line of scrimmage. A little bit of a chess match going on between the defense and offense here. And he's just going to let this wind down and call a timeout. Or the 2-minute warning. Sorry. I think Dak originally thought he was going to get more of a blitz look. And Fred Warner pointed at Dak saying, I got you. I know what you were trying to do. I know what check you were about to make. No. Megan says, awesome was being at Lumen Week 6 live with UB. It was awesome, Megan. I had a great time, and we got to watch a wonderful game. It was just a fun experience. Fun experience that was. It's been a couple years for me too, Megan. It's been a while. And I hadn't been down that low in a very, very long time. Thanks for getting such good tickets. D-Man says, is there any way both teams can lose? We can hope. It's a never-ending tie. Sean, can't wait to have an elite defense again next year. Me neither. I hope we can get there. Certainly the resource investment you would think is going to be there. I would hope. I would pray. Ethan says people aren't going to talk about how we won a lot in the back half of the 2010s. Yeah, they're not. That's why that consistent winning thing does make me kind of go, you know, it's a little cringy. It's nice. It is. It's great. But it's the point of being in this sport is not to be consistently a winning organization. It's good, but it ain't to the value of there are years we can reference here. You know, there's years that we can look back of, especially in that time with Wilson's prime, where you were very conservative, you know, where you were going to be very, you know, tight with the contracts, and you're going to just kind of stick to your plan, steady Eddie, you know, and it's in much indifference to what we've seen some of these organizations do in recent years who've had a lot of success being more willing to kind of push that ball a little bit, you know. Okay, we'll sacrifice future years for the now. And quite honestly, I think there's a little bit of that goes on now that's almost a bit of a requirement for a team that wants to get over the top in a Super Bowl now, where it wasn't before, where you could be a little bit more back in the old days of trusting your process because there wasn't so many teams willing to sacrifice so much future draft capital and draft picks in order to win for one given season. And that is the new lay of the land. And it can frustrate and freak the organization out because they have to sacrifice so much to the future to make that happen. But that's now going to be kind of the requirement. And no, I would not include making trades of Sheldon Richardson and Jadeveon Clowney and Jamal Adams as being those kind of moves. Those were moves made in desperation, not to push the ball forward, you know, not to try to not only max out the team, but go beyond the max, so to speak. All right, 4th and 4 here. Dak's got an empty look here, and he is in shotgun. CeeDee Lamb goes in motion pre-snap. Cowboys kind of like showing a casino blitz here. Dak gets through. He's going to scramble and have a lot of room to work. Boy, Dak Prescott's legs here early on. being a big part of the Cowboys' offensive success. And if they can wind this clock down, they can get this with the final possession of this half here. Boy, Niners pass rush was getting past that's that part of the wide nine that's tough, is that you can get people sometimes overrunning the quarterback because they all kind of do their job too good in creating pressure. But the alignment is wider, and so those guys get upfield. That opens up more of those natural gaps for a quarterback to get up there and get free. Herbert says, I also think we should go for Payne in free agency. I'd like to see it, man. Sign me up. That's my number one target. DVN says, I want the Cowboys to win so they can eliminate the 49ers and lose to the Eagles. That's fair. I like that. Russell Marquis says, all it takes to get Carter is 2 teams to trade up. Yeah. I think one team trades up, Russell Marquis. If one team trades up for a quarterback and then you're affixed to having 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 5 picks, I think the likelihood is that you end up with Carter at that point, if you're not moving back. But I think Carter would be the guy at that point. I think it'd be pretty natural. Megan says, what are the chances that we get another quarterback like Geno at some point in the future? By that, I mean one of those type of quarterbacks who comes under the radar and blows everyone out of the water. Well, this is a little bit of a personal opinion for me here, Megan. So this isn't certainly, fitting to necessarily the paradigm of the current NFL. I feel like there's going to be more of these quarterbacks able to come to the forefront because I think that there's been a little bit of an overvaluing to the quarterback position and a little bit of a less realization that if you have a strong quarterback in there and you put the right supporting cast around him, he can take you very far, even to the height of heights. And I really do believe that, Megan. I think you not only see it, Megan, here from guys like Geno, but you got Brock Purdy and his success this year. I was trying to think of a couple others that stood out, and now I'm completely blanking on them. I think even Tua having his success this year, Megan, I don't think he's supremely talented. He's got to throw with a lot of anticipation with his minimized arm strength, but even he was able to get some success this year as not really a super talented guy. God, I have a lot of other examples now, and they're all like leaving the top of my head here. Jalen Hurts, Megan, I think Jalen Hurts is still not a guy that I think is an upper level elite talent as far as throwing the football. I think he's always going to need to have his legs. And if you take his legs away, like we've seen with Russell Wilson, that guy's game's going to be removed down quite a bit, but with the right supporting cast around him, he can take you really far. So I think, Megan, there's a higher likelihood of you being able to find someone like that. I don't think that you're going to find necessarily a Geno-like guy that's playing at a top 5 level for a majority of the year, but certainly a guy that if you have a stronger supporting cast than the one that we had this year, Megan, you're not starting 2 rookies on the outside. You may be a little more investment in the offensive line, then they can take you even further than where Geno took you at that point with a guy that's not necessarily the most talented guy. With that, it's again, as I referenced, Megan, the theory in some fans' minds, when I talk to them, I get the impression that they want the cape flapping in the wind, They want his hands on his hips, cape flapping in the wind, and every Sunday they come in there and they're like, here I come to save the day. We need more of the, here I come in to execute the offense. I can do that. You're not going to ask me to be Superman. I can get that done. That's, to me, more of where the team should be trying to look to go. And I think, he just threw an interception. Dak just threw a pick to Fred Warner. Boy, Dak, you were playing so solidly, and then he tried to fit one in on way too tight of a window. Way too tight of a window there for Dak. That's the one that drives those Cowboy fans crazy with Dak there. Everything's on the right path. We have control. And then you make this throw, just squeezing it between 2 defenders there. There's no hole there, Dak. You can't throw that. Just get back to using your legs again, Your legs are so good. Clear back through, climb the pocket again back in there in that moment and get out of the pocket. It's tough. It's tough. So I think, Megan, and again, too, just as another example of this was Russell Wilson when you got him. Megan, is that you had in 2012 a really great team put together, but you had all the right elements put together so you could bring a rookie in. And even though Russell became a top flight, top 3, top 5 quarterback later on in his career, he wasn't that way initially. And so you had a guy that was a game manager, and yet you went out and won a Super Bowl. You went to back-to-back Super Bowls with a guy that was more in that element of being a guy who was a game manager with some of the best scrambling skills in the game. That was kind of his combination. And so I think you can replicate that again. I think you've had success before in the past. Why not having it again, going down that same road? And so, yeah, I actually have a lot of confidence that you could potentially do that. I'm in favor of that. It's one of the reasons I'm in favor of signing Geno, but there certainly is a price here. There certainly is a price. And somebody was mentioning too on that trade front, that was one thing Schneider did mention was about the draft capital that you can get trading back. So he's already putting out that lure into the water. You know, he's letting general managers out there across the NFL know that the shop is open, right? He's flipped the sign over from closed to open. He says, we'll take offers. We're listening. Herzai says we should roll with Geno and draft a quarterback 2024. I think it could be a very smart approach to go with on that. The quarterback draft's looking pretty good for next year. This one was supposed to look pretty good, and it's not horrible, but it's just, you're not necessarily getting if you're picking your quarterback in the top 5 this year, you're not getting necessarily the guy with as much being a finished product or having the upper level of talent, I think, in combination that you would usually like to have picking that high. You might get that more next year. Certainly, I think you're going to get with Caleb Williams, but there are a couple other guys in addition to that too. Megan, I know who you're voting for. I was figuring you're going to dig that Will Anderson vid too. I hope you guys like that one. If you didn't get a chance, check it out. I did a Will Anderson Terminator video this last week. It's up on the channel. Henry M says, what is Jalen Carter's position? What is Anderson's position? Sorry, I'm not up to speed on those dudes. Will Anderson can be either a defensive end. Both of them are kind of, they're ubiquitous. You could put him in a 3-4. You could put him in a 4-3. Anderson can stand up or he can put his hand in the dirt. He did both of those things at Alabama. So he can be an outside linebacker or a defensive end. In Carter's case, he's been more of a 3-tech, but he's also been asked to do 1-tech duties at times. He certainly could slide in and be a 3-4 defensive end, and especially the type of 3-4 that we play, which is we ask our defensive linemen on 3-4 to be more attacking than you typically do. So that would very much fit to his skill set. You do the gap and a half approach, right? A lot of times, so you usually would normally in history, when you have your 3-4 defense, you're going to have your 3-4 lineman 2-gap, right? They lock up at the snap with the lineman, and then they've got control over either gap over their left or right shoulder. They're responsible for both, but they're there to hold the line, contain on either side of their gap, and allow their linebackers to run clear behind them. So with what we do with our 3-4 defense is we actually tell those defensive linemen to get upfield. Go upfield, attack to a spot, try to get back to this other gap if you can do so, but do have a commitment off the snap to firing and attacking one or the other gap in that situation. So he would fit to it. You could put him out there as a 3-4, end at that point. Russell Marque asks, hey, Brandon, who is your Miles Murphy comp? I don't know if I've got a good comp for him yet. I think I had, I'm trying to check my notes and see if I have. So in certain ways, yeah, I don't have a really great feel for him at this point. He's a real big, 3-4 kind of end, but I'm not sure I've got a good comp. There was let me see here. Let me see if there's one in my mind that stands out maybe. Let me make sure I'm right on these guys being close of size. So he's kind of like a smaller Richard Seymour, I think is my comp. Seymour was like a 6'6", he's like a 6'4", but rolling explosiveness would be the attribute that I would apply with Miles Murphy. And I think that Seymour was maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit longer, but the explosiveness for being a big man was the part that really did jump out. To me. And so I would say that's my one right now. I might change that because I've been trying to think of one for that. My comp for Will Anderson is Charles Haley. Of course, my comp for Jalen Carter is going to be Cortez Kennedy. That is my legit comp for him. And the Niners got 24 seconds here to go. the second quarter, 6-6 tie. Herbicide says Tyree does it all by himself. Clemson has a whole team. That's right. It's a good point, man. You can kind of, and certainly I'll tell you this, going back, I'm going back right now watching the game from 2021 was the one I was kind of going through last night, because a lot of the Tyree tape I had watched when I did my early evaluation of him was on the 2022 tape. Go back to 21 though, and you can see even there, teams are giving him the guard tackle double team. You know, that thing that I flaunted, and oh my God, Micah Parsons just threw Mike Buglinchu with one arm, like just gave him the Reggie White hump move. That's what they call the Reggie White hump move right there. And he just gave it to him. Oh, that's hard to do. That takes a lot of strength and explosiveness to be able to throw a man like that. Very impressive. But back then he was even getting that same thing Anderson was getting on his tape, which is that left tackle or that right tackle guard double team. And Parsons there again, Purdy standing tall and just a laser beam down the field to Jennings. How about Purdy standing in there tall in that throw? Unfazed. I mean, Parsons again gets through the double team. Parsons a freak. Just a freak. Somebody was buck naked wide open though. 12 seconds to go here. No timeouts for the Niners. They're on the 32, so certainly in field goal range here. Purdy back in shotgun. Probably got enough for 2 plays. He's going to let this one fly. That's 7 seconds left. They might bring out the field goal unit right now. Yeah, Stephen Tuitt's another one that I might go at with him. I think that's probably the one. That's probably a little closer, Greg. I think I did say Stephen Tuitt on him. I thought I had Stephen Tuitt with somebody else. Maybe I said it on him. I thought Tuitt was I thought I had a Tuitt comp on somebody else. Oh, that probably works. I didn't like any of these comps yet. That's the thing. And I had another guy in this draft that then started to look like Stephon Tuitt, so I had to change that to that guy. Because I think Keon White looks a lot like Stephon Tuitt. Was a Georgia Tech defender. So Tyree's getting a lot of attention, Herbicide. And so to say, like you say, to do it by himself, he's getting those double teams that he's got to fight through at times. Russell, Charbonnet's a great back. This draft class for running backs is probably the best one we've seen in at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. Paul says, yeah, I really hope we focus on the defensive line, O-line, and trading down from 5 if Jalen Carter's not available. Me too, man. I will stand up and I will applaud heavily if we were able to do that. And I would love trading with Carolina. I'll trust that they're not going to be a good team next year. And that draft pick to be a top 10, top 5 pick if you have to trade for a future, if you're trading a future first at that point. Chewable says, Team Tyree Wilson here. Well, he's my next video, so you guys are going to be very happy because that's the next one. I need to have an angle though on this one. So I had the Terminator on the last one. I had the Tez on my Carter video. I got to find my angle here on the Tyree one, you know. What's my angle with him, you know? Got to find my deal, but he's impressive. He's got like 35-inch long arms. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Megan says, smart. Please explain to me how trading down is smart when you get a better range of players at 5. Oh, you're speaking of Herbicide. Clearly, I'm missing something. As I think that's a very stupid move. Well, I think that's the key on it, Megan. Is if it, let's just say, you know, to me, Megan, you have 2 defensive players in this class that are here in this tier 1 realm, and then you're kind of talking yourself a little bit into one of these other defenders behind them being in that tier 1 realm. And so you move, let's say you lose out on Carter, you lose out on Anderson. And if we're bypassing Carter Anderson, Megan, to trade back, then I think your argument has a lot more sound, or, you know, your reticence on that is a lot more sound to feel like that, because you are losing out on maybe a little bit of a significant better top end potential player. But if those guys are off the board and you have a player at 5 whose projection is very similar to the player that you're going to get 9, or not even similar. Let's say it's the same, Megan. Let's say you have 2 guys in their evaluation process where they say this guy's top end is at a 94 and this guy's top end is a 94, and they play at different positions and we like them both and we could use them both, and we're going to get one of these 2 guys when we drop back to 9 because we have a pretty good idea of who those teams are picking ahead of us through those first 4 picks. Well, now you're picking up the extra first, and now you're picking up the extra third while not really losing out on any of that top end potential of a player. And that's why it would be smart at that point if the cards fall out on the table in that fashion. The Niners got a kick there, so they will be up by 3 points to end out a very closely played first half, 6-9. Adam Walker says, Norb is back after hack live. That's good to hear. Norb is back, man. It's wonderful. It freaked me out when I heard about it. It's like, oh, my channel could just be taken instantly, never come back. That's brutal. Brutal. So yeah, Megan, can you please explain why trading down is a smart move? As far as I can see, it's a very stupid move to me, Mike. So yeah, you got, you're at 5, Megan, and the only way you don't want to move down in 5 as far as, well, it's really 2 questions you ask yourself. If I move down from 5, am I getting a significantly less talented player from 5 to 9? And really, Megan, when you're talking about 4 places there, 4 places, we're not talking about dropping back 20 picks, 30 picks, 4 spots, top of the draft. You're not losing out on that much of a different player. Again, like I said, just my what do you call it? This is preloaded to say this is under the situation where Carter and Anderson are both off the board. Carter and Anderson are both off the board. 3 of the quarterbacks, 2 of the maybe 2 quarterbacks are off the board. You're picking on the third one. That's where, if it's given that scenario, I'm not losing that much trading back. That's really the key at that point. And I think that Megan, I think they're going to view the guy at 5 and the guy at 9, absent Carter Anderson. They're going to look at those 2 guys from a talent structure, from a top end structure, from where they see them projecting out to, and they're going to say that's very similar. So what's the difference at that point? Is it smart just to pick the player at 5 just because I'm at 5 and I got to say, well, I'm at 5, so I got to just stand and take the best guy? Or if my evaluation has it set to where I see both of those 2 players through the same vein and I know one of them is going to be available, and most of the time when you do these kind of war game exercises on these drafts, Megan, you can know who 6, 7, and 8 would then be picking. You'd have a good idea of where they're going to be targeting at that point. It's not going to be probably too surprising. So if that's the case, then it makes a lot. It's almost, if you think about it through that lens of it, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? If I, again, and this will be hard for you, I think, because you're thinking about Anderson, you're thinking about, that, but put that out. Those guys are gone. There's not the guy behind Anderson, Tyree Wilson, is a far cry from Anderson from a projectable standpoint. He may have some great top end, but Anderson is a lot more of a certain, I know what I'm getting. Carter, a lot more certain, I know what I'm getting. With Tyree, with Sealy Ringo, with Miles Murphy, go down the line on these, Megan. They're all going to have huge question marks to, not huge, but they'll have question marks to them. There is no there's no brainer he'll be a star in the NFL types. And if this draft was more like, let's say last year, Megan, maybe I'm a little more hesitant to do that. But it's kind of not like last year in that respect of things. So I just think you're getting a pretty equivalent player by moving back just a couple spaces, and you're potentially picking up, Megan, that top 10 pick first round. You love yourself Caleb Williams. If I'm able to go get Caleb Williams next year because I have a top 10 pick and I have our first round pick and I'll offer futures first round capital to go get that guy, then at that point, would you think it was worth it? You end up, that ends up netting out, Caleb Williams next year because you're able to pull that down the road, I think you do that, which that does open the door to that then. Ethan says, if we get Payne in free agency, that can openly more drafting options and flexibility. It could. Not to mention it fills maybe the biggest hole you have on your team right out the gate, which is wonderful. Yeah, Dak Prescott has become a bit of an interception machine. And that's a completely poor decision making on his part there. And he was so smart through most of that half. It's so unnecessary in that moment. You got to be aware because you not only took points off the board for yourself, you gave the Niners now an opportunity to score with some time left on the half. It's doubly bad in that way. Herbicide says a center, right guard, Nika in the second. That would be the best in the draft. That would be bad. That'd be awesome. Paul says, not a Cowboys fan. Too many beatdowns and disrespect, plus the North Dallas 40 movie, plus Tony Dorsett, plus the early Thanksgiving beatdowns. That's fair. I got to go back and watch North Dallas 40, man. It's been a long time since I've seen that film. Yeah, so Megan, I think you got to think of it through just it. I get what you're saying on Anderson. And like I said, if Anderson's there and you're moving down, I think it's a different conversation for me at that point. If Carter is there and you're moving down, it's a different argument for me at that point. I'm aligned right up with you, Megan. But if those 2 guys are off the board, and if the 2 top quarterbacks are off the board, and you're sitting there at 5 at that point, I think that then there's definitely a pathway. Okay, I got to look at alternative options of that rather than just selecting. But those guys, yes. And yeah, I think Stroud will be gone there, Megan. I do. I think it's either one of Bryce Young or Levis that probably is actually sitting there when you pick at 5 at that point. Or was that I like Tyree over Miles? Yep, me too at this point. DVN says some people complain about Geno, but Sauls has an offense like this and still throws all these INTs. Dak's got him. Yeah, exactly. And you're right, DVN. Dak had the defense bail him out way more for some of these situations throughout this year. And what they had the backup in there this year, and he played pretty close to where Dak was at a significantly lesser rate. There's another, Megan, a comp for you on that as far as quarterback coming in. You've got a star you're paying big on Dak. Dak goes down for a few games. This kid comes in and he plays pretty good football for him. But yeah, I agree. It's one of the reasons I don't knock Geno for that DVN. It's one of the reasons I've tried to sit and praise on him heavily on it and go, look around the league. Look at these other quarterbacks, how they're playing. He's playing head and shoulders above many of these guys. Paul says, if Price or CJ is there, that makes it a tough call. Jalen Carter is my top choice. If they're gone, I'd rather trade down and get a later round first and an extra second. Yeah, exactly. Jason James, do you like the trade comp written in The Athletic with Carolina? I just kind of heard about it. So it sounds like we would trade back to 9 from 5 and we'd get a first round pick next year's draft and we get a third round pick in this year's draft. That sounds about right, of right value. It'd be nice to get maybe a little bit more of a kicker in there, It'd be nice to get a first, a second, third kind of thing. But, that's pretty good. I think everyone's going to feel pretty good about that. I like the risk, Jason, of the first round pick in Carolina next year. I like the odds of Carolina not being a good team moving into next year. Even if they go get themselves at that point Levis or whatever, I'm gonna take my chances on that one. Joe DBZ says, I want a quarterback early in the draft. Fix the line. I don't want a quarterback early in the draft. Fix the lines. Geno can do the job. Get the man a proper center and maybe a guard for defense. Rebuild the entire line and new linebackers. Defense wins games. Well said, Joe. I can't add on much more than what you said. I'm in full agreement with it, man. Let's go that route. Big country. Oh my God, Purdy nearly screwed up there with the clock. He almost messed it up. Just got out of it. Just got a little bit. Cam Robinson says, I think we'll be good with Smith and Locke if we can keep them. It's possible. Might end up with both. Paul says, could you give us a review of our strongest possible position groups as well as our weakest? It's a good question. Strong positional group. Well, you're probably safety positional group, especially if you've got Ryan Neal as you're being brought back as a restricted guy. If they're able to restrict him and they don't have to pay him all the money to bring him back, you're bringing him back in with Jamal coming back. That's probably theoretically your strongest group at that point. I think tight ends right there with it, step for step in there. And I think outside linebacker you feel good about. You've got Taylor coming on a little bit at the end of the year. Boye Mafe coming on at the end of the year. Chenna was great, solid to great throughout the season. Alton Robinson still coming back. Tyreek Smith still coming back at that point. I guess you feel pretty good about that. I think you feel good about your tackle situation, both starters and backups from Forsythe to Curran. I don't think Curran or Forsythe are ever going to light the world on fire, but if you need to put them in a pinch, they can get the job done. Weakness, middle linebacker, defensive line, your receiver core. Those are really, to me, the ones that are going to need to be addressed in a major fashion kind of all the way around. Maybe not as much the receiver core, but you got to get some more value there one way or another. Maybe it's bringing back Goodwin and somebody else. I just don't think you can rely on Eskridge at this point. So you've got to work it in another place. But strangely enough, safety. I mean, Diggs came on this year and ended up having a pretty solid year when it was all said and done from the free safety position. I know people hammer him about the broken tackles and the dropped interceptions, but the guy takes away the football from the free safety position nearly at the exact same rate Earl Thomas did when he was there, if not at the exact same rate that Earl Thomas did when he was here. If you look at how often they get an interception, Diggs is right there with him. And this year was more of the same for him in that realm of things. So Adams comes back. He's the run defender he normally is, and you put him in position to succeed, not playing cover 2 or cover 1 over the top. Then that's probably your strongest. Tight end's right there though, step for step. I really love where we're at with the tight end position, especially using the 3 tight ends. Mick Führer, would you consider Smith-Jigba with the second first-round pick? I would. My comp for Jigba, he's a very interesting player too, I'll say that. My comp for Jigba is going to be Amon St. Brown. And this has been a position of evolution for me, from my standpoint, because if you asked me 4 years ago about drafting a slot receiver only in the first round, I would have laughed you out of the room, and said that and boy, I'm behind on some donations. Holy crap. Sorry, I'll get to this. Sorry, just saw some donations on the side. My bad. I would laugh you out of the room, but this is a place where I'm starting to kind of more now develop into a place of understanding that, look, there's a lot of times you're 65% of the time in a game in 3 wide receiver looks, especially within the foundational core of this offense. And if that's the case, you need to have a solid slot guy out there that can get the job done. And this guy would give you the best slot guy that we've had in Seahawks since, Doug Baldwin was kind of an inside-outside guy. So if you talk about just a pure slot guy, he would be the best that you've had since Bobby Ingram. I don't love the thought of drafting a slot receiver in the first round still, but I'm starting to come around to understanding that this is the new NFL. This is the new value of the NFL, and that this kind of guy can come in there and be tremendously productive, even though he's only playing kind of within that sort of given role there within it. But he's a fun player. He's going to be a good pro. He's going to be a productive pro. But that's the thing you got to make your peace with if you don't go out there and get him, is that, Mick, you've got to accept the fact you're not getting a guy who's going to be able to play on the outside. He's an inside only guy, I think, at the next level. Jordan with a $5 donation. Thank you, Jordan. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sorry I'm a little late on acknowledging it. It says, being down 3 at the half is a W for the Cowboys. Kyle had terrible clock management. They certainly got out of those timeouts really quickly. They were without him fast for some reason. And some of the plays looked like they were one timeout he called was a brutal one where it's just, he's kind of confused by what he's seeing on the front. But yeah, the Cowboys being in this game on the road, short week for them, right? Let's not forget that the Niners coming in this with extra rest. The Cowboys played on Monday night. And to be within 3 points here, I certainly feel pretty good if I'm this Cowboys team about where we're standing right now in this game and where it's going. So you feel good about it. You certainly wouldn't have loved to have that turnaround that half like it did where Dak, you want him to come away with let's get a field goal. Let's close out the half. Don't give the Niners an opportunity to the ball back here. And we go into it with the lead a little bit. But all that being said, you got within a 1-possession game. Can't ask for kind of better than that, can you? Appreciate you, Jordan, though. Thank you for the $5 dono. Puff has been a member of the channel for 13 months. Thank you, Puff. I really do appreciate it. Says, go Cowboys? Mother of God. 2 of my least favorite teams going at it. Annoying. Keep up the good work, man. Go Hawks. Can't wait until next season. Well, thank you, Puff. And yeah, this is a hard one to vote for anybody on, right? Nobody wins in this one. Whoever wins, we lose. So yeah, people were asking me to call who I want. I was like, I don't, somebody's got to win, I guess. Megan says, I'm rolling my eyes so hard that I can see in the back of my skull. We have not had a pick at 5 in years, and you want to give it away if Carter and Anderson are gone. No, so Megan, I know I'm a little slow on responding, but do respond on back to what I'm saying with it. Let's make sure we're fitting within the confines of it. If Carter and Anderson are there, I want to pick the pick there. I think most people would, but I think that if they're gone, the players behind them aren't the same. Megan says, who's the player that you would give away 5 for? They better be Russell Wilson as prime good. Yeah, I'd be getting probably a likely top 10 pick from the Panthers the next year, on top of a 3rd-round pick that's a high 3rd-round pick in this draft, Megan. So I'm adding 2 players there. Again, and I know I'm a little bit slow I'll get up on the comments to catch up here, but again, you're getting I think you're probably behind on my response to your response, so I'll wait till I've got your response below. Brian says trade 5 to Houston for 12, 32, and next year's 1st-round pick. getting kind of deep there on that one. We're going a little far back on that, maybe. I'd have to kind of look and see, Brian, how it's going to play out through the first round there with the projective teams, where they're going to be picking at that point. The Cowboys are starting out with the ball here, and Dak's already going to start using his legs, which is good to see here, and get him down to a 3rd and short. Cameron Robinson, Maze Smith. I like him a lot, Cameron. I think he is a wall of a zero tech, and there's a couple guys like that in this draft, like Siaka Iki's like that too. Quite a few. Benton from Wisconsin. There's a few. There's a lot of really good guys. So, I do like him. He is a little bit to me of the one-trick pony, Cameron, in that he's really good in the run game. You're not going to run at him. You're not going to move him. He's solid against double teams. But at the same point in time, he doesn't give you very much pass rush. So that does ding him down my board a little bit. I don't even want to be taking a defensive tackle in the 3rd round if I'm getting no pass rush from him, really. And I don't think you're going to get a lot from him at the next level. So he's kind of a 4th round guy to me. But as a guy that could help this defensive line and help us to stop the run more consistently, he absolutely can. Megan says, Caleb is not on the board at 5. So Megan, what I'm saying this with this proverbially, though, is you're getting a top 10 pick. You don't know where your first round pick's going to go. And then what you do is you package those picks together to trade up and go get your quarterback at that point. That's what that opens the door to do. It's not that you're going to just pick the native pick of Carolina at that point. It's that you're packaging picks to make it an offer they can't refuse to then go get Caleb. That would be my theory. Or if not Caleb, there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks theoretically in this next draft that are going to be even more talented. They're projecting to be more talented. The kid that North Carolina, that's another one if you want to add that's very much in a very similar talent point to where Caleb is. So there's another guy you can trade up to, But you would have the draft capital to make that trade is the key there, Megan. You'd be able to package those picks. Nick Guzman, how could we sign Payne in free agency if we sign Geno? Did I miss something? Well, you can structure things in a way, Nick. And that's the key here is that you just move money around and you can, with guaranteed money, which isn't bonus money, but guaranteed money, you can kind of move the numbers any which way that you really see fit at that point. So if it just takes as much as anything, Nick, it would take the Hawks having a willingness to move that money around a little bit. But absolutely, they can afford it. It's just as much, or is it that are they willing to pay the price for Payne? Will they pay that cost? Will they give him that big contract that he's going to want? But you could afford it, Nick. You absolutely could. You could restructure deals. You could put the guaranteed money on the back end so the player knows he's getting the money no matter what on that point. Variety of different ways to kind of go at it on that one, but one would not preclude the other necessarily. Megan says, Will leave us at 5? Oh, hell yes, B. Immortal Edo Tech. All the mock drafts I've done have CJ Stroud falling to Seattle. Well, we'll see on that. We'll see on that one. My theory on this is that, and this is one that I feel pretty solid on saying, I do think the way this is going to play out is 3 quarterbacks taken in the first 4 picks. This will be the draft like a couple years ago that we saw, especially because of this draft being a little stronger as far as the, we got a fumble on the punt here on the Cowboys. Looks like the Cowboys are going to recover here on the muff fumble. Well, it's this kind of this is the kind of thing that can sink you in a game. Special teams turnovers, brutal. I can't see it, Immortal. I can't. Not after his performance there against Georgia in that bowl game. I think he's going to push his stock up there into the top 4. But if he lands in Seattle and we can take him, sign me up. I'm not even against Will Levis, to be honest with you, but you know I like Will Levis, Megan. I do. I think Carter will be available at 5. Defensive tackles, not a premium position. I do too. I speak about trading up, but if Carter, like I said, if Carter is there, if Anderson is there, then I probably would just prefer to take those guys because I do think that you are getting a lot less of a talented guy than moving back, which would not be the case if they were off the board. AI says Arizona will trade out. Somebody's coming up. I could see it. They need a lot of help, right? A lot of help. Who's winning this game? Hard to say. I don't know. Niners defense is playing stingy. Hard to say. Daniel says 100% not interested in Panthers next year's first. They're going to run away with that division easily. I wouldn't feel it. I wouldn't feel good. Go back to 11 with the Titans. Why would the Panthers not win next year's division? It's possible, I guess. I think that division's pretty wide open, Daniel, and you don't know necessarily what Tampa Bay is going to do at the quarterback position when Tom Brady leaves. So I think that I don't think the Saints are going to completely fall off the map either. So, Atlanta, I think a lot of those teams, that division, though there was a lot of up and down, there wasn't also as much, Daniel, of teams that were just simply horrifically bad either. Every team was kind of a middle of the road team in that division. So I don't know if we can say we know one's going to run away with it versus necessarily the other. But I would take the bet. I mean, Daniel, who are they going to go if they trade up and get then? Will Levis as a rookie is going to take the Panthers into the playoffs. Sorry, I didn't realize my thing wasn't showing. It's showing right. There we go. Got it back up. So I certainly think maybe he helps him a little bit, but he's going to have his struggles within that too, playing as a rookie. And I think that's going to give, they end up, I think at that point, probably as a 5-win team, 6-win team, which ends up getting you a top 10 pick. But it is a risk. There are no guarantees. That's for sure. I think with the Titans too, I mean, I could apply a little bit of the same thing with the Titans there, where you make a trade for the Titans and it's no guarantee the Colts are going to be good. I know the Jaguars are kind of on the rise, but they've just done it for 1 year. Let's see if they can sustain it into next year beyond that. And then you have, who is it? They got the Houston Texans in that division. So I don't know, man. I think you could kind of say that same risk could kind of easily just be applied if you did to the Titans there. It's a risk. It's a gamble. James Hargraves, show the game. No, James, I can't do that, man. That's how I get copywritten struck, and then I get my channel taken down. So can't do that. You know what I mean, man? Keldon, Purdy, and Dax dropping a throw here. Oh, Elliott with a brutal drop, tipped it up in the air. That was almost picked off. Some sloppy football here a little bit in the second half to begin things. Ball says, golly gee, whiz bang, if we can't run and stop the run, no matter QBs or super receivers will win the season, let alone survive the playoffs. Well said, man. Got to invest in those lines. Herbert says, okay, so the Bears will pick D and the Cards will pick D. Houston and Colts are going for quarterback. They pick ahead of us. Yeah. I don't, again, when it comes to the Bears just standing pat Herbicide and just taking let's say a defensive tackle, like they're going to take the first defensive tackle, number 1 overall in the draft since 93. They look at their team and they go, yeah, we'll be able to get the rest of the line. We'll be able to get all the holes we've got at the skill positions. We'll be able to deal with all that. We just need to get the defensive tackle or Will Anderson. I think that they're going to be trading back. And I think that the impetus on this one for me on this Herbicide is it's not just merely that that's the smart move for them to do, but that there'll be a team wanting to trade up and go get one of these top quarterbacks. I mean, it seems like a pretty likely scenario at this point. The Bears, if they're not themselves going to just move on from Fields and take a quarterback themselves, the second likely scenario at this point has to be that they're moving back, that there will be a team that gives them a lot of assets to move. Keldon says, Purdy totally meant to leave 1 second on the clock. What a pro. Dan W says, Tom Brady's gone. Tampa will fall into the abyss again. Saints suck. Panthers have that division on lockdown. Good O-line, good D-line. Texans, Colts will give Titans problems next year. I mean, maybe. The Texans, Daniel, don't even have a coach yet. Do the Colts even have their coach yet? How do you know that you don't even know who they're going to hire? Whether it's a good hire or a bad hire, say nothing of neither of those teams from a roster construction standpoint are all that talented. Maybe. Again, the Saints didn't suck this year. They were not good, but if I'm saying that a team's sucking in a year, it's like, well, they had 3 or 4 wins. The Saints carved out 7 wins on the season. Atlanta carved out 7 wins on the season. They all had the same amount of wins and losses Carolina did. So, and that's a Saints team, by the way, that's playing most of their year with Red Rifle at quarterback, right? Where their quarterback situation is just completely kind of crap. That's Atlanta with Desmond Ridder at quarterback for a lot of the year. and Marcus Mariota. So I don't know. I think either way, I think it's kind of an equivalent risk in my opinion on that. But I'm not going to cry if either one happens. AI says, I watched Jigba in the 2022 Rose Bowl, 300 some yards. Oh no, he was good. I think I saw some of that. So he's dynamic. He is. But he is an inside only guy. And we got to be real on that part of it. Julba Orb says Addison's better than Jigba. Yeah, I've got him higher. My stack goes Johnson, Addison, Jigba is my 1, 2, 3. Yeah, sorry about the score thing there, Chuck. I didn't realize I'd open another tab. Paul says, yeah, Chicago most likely trades back, creating pressure for other teams to move up to get a Levis or Richardson. We could get the best guard since Hutchinson and the top nose tackle and maybe a top center. Bingo. It's going to be a good collection if you can pull it that way. Kelvin says, I think the Niners offense will show up in the second half like last week, but the offense needs to stop sleeping in the first half. It's tied up now, 9-9, 9:07 to go here in the third quarter, and kickoff is here to the 49er returner. He's got some space to work with, folks, and he's out moving along in the open field. Nice return there. Oh, maybe a late hit. No late hit. So nice job by Ray McLeod out there making it happen up to the 50-yard line. AI says nobody has traded out at number 1 since 2007. It only happened 4 times. Too expensive. I don't think that's as likely the scenario here, AI. I don't. When you look at the history of the teams that have the first round pick, right? And tell me if I'm wrong on this, but when you tend to have a team that's in the first round pick that is up at that spot, they tend to need a quarterback. It's very rare that you have a team in the situation like Chicago this year who have their quarterback of the future and then are willing then to trade out. It's not just about it being too expensive. It also has to be reliant on there being a team willing to trade out of the pick. And I would offer you AI, if I have a team that's asking for too much compensation, it's because they really just want to make that pick and that selection, not because they're expecting the sun, moon, and stars to move back. So while, the number 1 pick hasn't moved very often, if you look at the number of quarterbacks that go number 1 overall, it's because those teams want to take their guy. They've got the pick of the litter at the quarterback position. They tend to need a quarterback, and they're not going to offer that off to somebody else. They're going to take their guy. And so that's more of what drives it more than, to me, the expensive side of it, in my opinion. David Phillips says a walk-in impression on this horrible matchup. I'll tell you, David, already you make me watch Cowboys, 49ers, throw up my mouth. I need give me some toothpaste, please. I can't watch. Now, they're going to play like this. What is this? Field goal? I don't know. I've never seen this before. It's like they're allergic to touchdowns. Why? I don't know. But hopefully someone scores today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Is this game ever going to end? Somebody, please give me eye bleach now. I need it like cowbells. Birdie going deep, throwing it to Nowheresville. Watkins not impressed though, David. He doesn't understand why these games are so bad this weekend. I want to be entertained. I want to see good football. This looks like background football. Purdy not looking too purdy at all. What's going on? I don't know. Herbicide says, would you give up 3 first-round picks for Caleb Williams? I'd give up 4 first-round picks for Caleb Williams. I'd give up, if we got 2 first-round picks next year, I would give up 2 future first-round picks on top of it, and I'd get that deal done. I'd godfather that bitch. I'm going to make him an offer. He can't refuse. And he'll say, here's 4 first-round picks, and now you will give me Caleb Williams, and you will be happy with it. Mason says, if there's a quarterback we like, do we take them if Carter or Anderson are on the board? Well, some of it's going to be, you're going to be probably educated on this somewhat, Mason, that's not the right word, but you're going to be influenced on this by what happens with Geno Smith. If you take Geno Smith, then no, there's no way I could see you going with Carter Anderson instead. Now, if there's no Geno Smith here, you've only got Drew Lock. A lot more likely that you probably do potentially take a quarterback there. Certainly. But Geno's kind of the hinge. Megan says, name the player B. Who is it that if Carter and Anderson are off the board? Name the player B. Who is that if the Carter and Anderson are off the board? I don't know what you mean on that, Megan. I'm sorry. Name B, the player B. Who is it that if Carter and Anderson are off the board? Yeah, I think if it's Anderson or Carter off the board, you're talking about Tyree Wilson or Miles Murphy. Are probably one of those two picks is who you're taking, Megan, if not a quarterback. But again, as I was saying before on this, Megan, it's like you could take a quarterback top 5 this year and you're not necessarily getting what you historically normally are going to get with the top 5 quarterback pick. It's kind of like you're picking because you need the player, right? And now we're starting to drive into that realm of rather than being driven by BPA, you're driven by need. And so while I'm not against taking a quarterback there, I also landed that spot of going, are any of these guys that I'm picking then at 5 really worthy of being a top 5 pick in the draft? You know, if I look at the top 5 pick from this last year's draft, it's a way better player than I'm getting to pick from in this year's draft to that 5, I think. I have way more certainty in last year's draft for that top 5 guy than I'm going to get in this year's draft, I think. And that does inform me then that I want to be open to moving it. But if I misunderstood that, just reword that if you could, if I might have misunderstood that. Rick Zepeda, who are the Seahawks' biggest rivals? I think it's the 49ers. Certainly after this last week. Paul says safety, tight end, O-line, tackle spots. Nice, strong groups. Very strong. Strong with some depth. AI, if we got Carter and Payne, that would be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal. And AI, I know that you were asking about modding up, so let me get you modded up. Let me get you modded, my man. So I did promise you I was going to do that. And I want to get Megan some more help in here. She's got to carry this heavy load between the porn and the Niner trolls and everything in between. Congratulations, AI. Don't abuse the power. Don't abuse it. Remember, I do not want people kicked out of here unless they're really overstepping the bounds. So people get warnings and all that good stuff. 9-9 here, still Cowboys. Niners punted back to him. Dak going deep. He's got a man deep. Oh my God, what a catch by CeeDee Lamb. Dak vastly underthrew that ball. CeeDee came back down to a stop. The defender ran into him to the point that he drew a flag on it. CeeDee falling down, still able to make the catch. Just showing off that great body control. Dak saw this late. That ball needed to be gone much, much earlier. But they make the catch nonetheless. Beautiful play. Mar won me a fantasy championship, says David. Cool Breeze, how you doing, man? It's good to see you in the chat. Hervin, NFL Gang Boy says, I hate the Niners. Yeah, there's a good amount of hate over here for the Niners too. It is. Megan says, I heard Sean Desai interviewed with the other teams last week. B, what say you? I'd love to see him sign, Megan. I think we get like a couple of picks, like 2 third-round picks, the minority compensatory stuff. So Megan, if he's hired, we get draft picks for it. So if that's going to occur, then yay. It would suck to lose him, but if you're going to lose a coach and get some draft capital back in return, that's not the worst way to go. And, quite frankly, Megan, I mean, I don't know if it was that his hands were tied, but he didn't exactly show me a lot this year that made me feel like he was, that made me feel like he was integral to what we're trying to do into the future. He may very well be. I just didn't see it. Yeah, David, don't pay kickers, right? Mason says, I think the Bears could have less leverage in a trade back than people think. Everybody knows they want to trade back and acquire more picks. They could become desperate if no one gives them a haul. It's possible, but the thing that drives this, of course, is always going to be the other leverage side to this, Mason, which is that if there's multiple teams that fall in love with a quarterback, and one quarterback in specific, that's all it really takes, right? And what are the parameters for that? Well, You have to have quarterback hungry teams, and you need to have quarterback hungry teams up near the top of the draft, but who aren't able to pick high enough in the draft to just go get their guys. Certainly the Texans and the Colts might be able to just take their guys where they stand, but teams like Carolina or the Raiders, or go down the line of the list of teams that are picking from anywhere from like 8 to 14 who want a quarterback. And you get both of those teams then going back and forth at that point. The cost doesn't get less at that point. The cost gets more. And so, yeah, teams do know that they want to do it, but I don't think that in itself they don't have to do it as well. They can just take the player that they're at. I don't think that they're driven by a desperate approach here to have to make that trade if people are going to just basically lowball them, which I don't think they will. I think you'll get a team at that's the other thing. Like one of these teams like a Carolina goes up at number 1, gives them the multiple 3-round picks and a second rounder in addition, and you call it a day. Bears still get a pick in the top 10. I think it goes that way. I really feel like it will. I could be completely off on that one, but I do think Megan, they'd let him go if he signs. The thing Coach Carroll always is pretty good about Megan is that he's really in favor of coaches being able to go up the ladder and get promotions. And if you're a positional coach to become a defensive coordinator, he's definitely a guy that says, yes, do that. So if Desai's got a defensive coordinator job, he's out there being offered somewhere, I think Carroll would be a guy to go, yeah, that's you go take that job. And I guess especially Megan, because you are getting compensatory draft picks back if you have a minority coach that's hired like that. Jammin' Freedom says we just need to load up on the D line big time. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, man. That's just what we need to do. You better believe it. You better believe it. Jason Wolf says, Brandon, what do you think of us overpaying a kicker? Well, Jason, I just posted the video yesterday on Myers. So if you get a chance, or 2 days ago, I think I might have done it. So if you get a chance, go check out that video. I kind of go into the depths of it. My bottom line on it is that, I'm not in itself completely opposed to paying a kicker. I don't like it. I'd prefer not to do it, but I'm not completely, there just is no circumstance ever. But if I'm paying for a kicker, then I've got to get Justin Tucker like level of performance or what he's been. I know he had a bit of a down year this year, but I need to have a guy that's good to great year in and year out. And when you look at not only Myers here, but over the course of his career, he's been a middling kicker. I know he has his sensational years, but then on the other side of the sensational years is the bad years. And you're getting the good with the bad, the good with the bad, yet we're paying for only good. So I'm not really in favor of it. I worry that it's going to be money that's going to be just enough money to maybe clip you from being able to really be in the sweepstakes for a guy like Daron Payne, where the team comes back and says, well, we had a price that we're willing to go. We weren't willing to go higher. And it's like, well, was that price $3 million less because you put it towards a kicker? And would that $3 million more have been enough to then sign him in here to bring him aboard at that point? I don't know if it's going to play out that way, but I'm a little worried that it might. Just a tiny bit worried that it might. Jason Wolf says this game shows us that defense needs to be 3 of our top 4 picks. I'm with you there, man. I am with you there. Sign me up. David Phillips says, walking doing Jerry Jones, calling Mike McCarthy on the sideline, telling him which place. Walking, doing Jerry Jones, calling Mike McCarthy on the sidelines, telling him which plays to put in place on the final quarter. I'll try, David here. That's a tough one, man. Mike McCarthy, what are you doing now here? You trying to screw me here? Come on. I'm going to tell you what you're going to call a deck now. You're going to call it or not. I don't know. I'd like to see it, though. Here's the play, okay? You got it there, McCarthy? Come on now. Dallas Cowboys. I'd hope you're going to try. Throw the damn ball, Mike. Today, now, please. We need it. I want my Super Bowl like yesterday. Come on now, McCarthy. It's about as good as that. That's tough. Walking, doing Jerry Jones, berating Mike McCarthy. Chewable Richardson might be worth the gamble after Young and Stroud are gone. He might be. Somebody's going to fall in love with the upside of Richardson. I'll tell you that, Chewable. Jason says, I don't care who wins this game. I just look forward to teasing the fans of the team that loses tonight. That's fair enough. Kronos, that is another part. If a team wants to decide, they will need to compensate us. No, they won't. But yes, I want to take over DC and send Hurt back to defensive line coach. No, they don't need to compensate you. If it's Cronus, he's going from being a positional coach here to becoming a defensive coordinator, he just goes. You do get compensation back though. The NFL has established a minority hire compensatory package. So if you have a coach that's a minority who's hired to be like a defensive coordinator at that point, then you're going to get some compensation back. So you'll get a couple third round picks or something if he goes, but they don't have to give up anything in draft capital. Crono says, what are the chances that the first time we get a top 5 pick in 10 to 15 years, it's one of the smallest, weakest draft classes in recent history? I know it sucks. It does suck. The NIL has really knocked out one of the legs of this draft. It has, with all of the guys going back. And this is the year that kind of suffers for the long-term potential benefits, I guess, of it, where it more stabilizes back to the old. Kronos, sorry. Brian Myers says this draft class is no worse than last year. Not sure on that, Brian. I'm not. I feel like last year's, it might be equivalent as far as talent goes across the board, but certainly for elite talent at the top, I think last year's class had more guys that were elite at the top. You know, you're getting a guy like Charles Cross last year at 9. If Charles Cross is in this draft, he's probably going like 4 or 5. You know, I think so. I think it's a little bit lessened at the top end of it to me, at least initial look. Dan says minority comps only go for head coaching GM positions, not coordinators. Oh, my bad. I thought for sure that it was coordinators, but I could be wrong. It's a confusing rule to me, Daniel. Megan says, really B? Okay. But given how hard B had to get him, I don't think he'll let him go so easily, but fair point about the picks, I guess. I could be wrong. Daniel's saying I'm wrong on this with this, so maybe I got to go back and look at that deal if it does include. I thought if it was them going for a coordinator that was included as well, but it's a new rule, so I'm not completely up on the ins and outs on it. So hard to say on that. But Pete's been usually pretty good, Megan, even when he's had, like he had Dan Quinn on the roster at one time as a defensive line coach, and then Dan Quinn got offered the defensive coordinator job with Miami, the Hurricanes. He didn't hold him on the staff at that point. Well, no, you're under contract. You got to stay. He let him go and become a DC at Miami. And then, of course, Quinn came back and became a DC here with the Hawks. Purdy dropping back throw here for the 50-yard line. 9-9 Niners and Cowboys. He throws it to McCaffrey, makes a little catch there. Boy, these defenses are staying very stiff here today. Kronos says the tier 1 part of the draft is smallest, or maybe I agree with that. You're right on that, Kronos. I think that's the way I'm seeing it too. Herbert says, I don't think Desai, Hurt, or Waldron will be the next head coach of this team. I don't either. Yeah, Megan, I don't think he's likely to replace Pete Carroll is Desai here. Because again, with this too, Megan, is the thought process that the team is going to sell within the next couple of years. And when the team sells within the next couple of years, the new owner is going to want to make his own kind of hire. And it's probably not going to come from within house, I wouldn't think. At least historically, this is the way that this tends to work, Megan. I can't think of the last time an owner came in, had a coaching staff that he was sort of, wanting to change to something else, hired a guy from within the own coaching staff to be the new head coach. And that being the way that process played out. I can't see it going that way. They're going to want to kind of reach out. Partly, I think, because of the same reason I think a new owner wants to tend to make a head coaching change absent there being a ton of success with the team, because then they get to have the credit for saying they were the one that sought those coaches out. They were the one to make the final call on that to bring them in. Cowboys are moving the ball here up to the 26-yard line. Nice little run by Christian McCaffrey. AI says Myers was paid $4 million this year. 5.5 isn't much of an increase with new salary cap. No, but that's again, it's you paid him a high water mark on the last contract that you paid him too, right? AI. So like he was a free agent. He was coming off a Pro Bowl year with the New York Jets. You paid him top of the kicker market money to bring him in. So you're still now just remaining at top of the kicker market money on an inflationary basis, but you're still paying top of the market for a kicker who does not give you top level performance year in and year out. It's 1 year bad, 1 year good, 1 year bad, 1 year good. or 1 year bad, 1 year great, 1 year bad, 1 year great. To me, that's not a worthwhile investment. That's misspent money at that point. And, he's been this way for 8 years. It's not that he's just been this way 4 years in Seattle. He was this way for 4 years with the Jets. You get to 8 years at that point, that's not sample size. That's who he is, And throughout 8 years of his career in kicking accuracy, Jason Myers lands at 17th. 17th over an 8-year span. That's his ranking in the NFL as far as his kicking accuracy goes. And he has issues, by the way, with hitting extra points. He's probably missed about 7, 8 extra points over the last 4 years as well on top of it. So he's got that as a little bit of a struggle too on the other end. And, you're paying top of the market for that at this point. And it's, I think the better route to go would have been to go look at a young kicker. Go draft the best kicker in this draft. Look at that happening with that kid, Dicker this year. The rookie kicker, didn't he lead the NFL in kicking percentage? What's he costing them, on that roster? What's his price? All right, Purdy, 2nd down and 9 now. Back in shotgun from the 20-yard line of the Cowboys. Another nice little read option play. He overthrows Brandon Ayuk, though, on the throw. I'll bring up 3rd down and 9 now. Boy, these teams just, once they get to that side of the field, boy, those defenses are just tightening down. Brian Myers says didn't get the associate head coaching title for nothing. He's up next in Seattle. Yeah, I see where you guys are going with it, but again, I think that the thing not being considered here is the new ownership group coming in. We don't know who the new owner is going to be, but that the new coach has already been decided for, and if it's a matter of Coach Carroll's going to step down, when do we think Coach Carroll's stepping down? Is it going to happen before that new ownership buys the team? Because as I said, I'm expecting right now by springtime of 2024, which we are now approximately about a year away from, 14 months or so, the team is going to sell at that time. A new owner comes in and he goes, okay, I want a new head coach. I'm going to hire it from the same staff. I can't see it. I can't on that one. I get that they, the associate head title job was given Brian to give him a sweetening of the pot over the top of what the Minnesota Vikings were offering, because you were in competition with the Vikings to bring him in. It wasn't about the future head coaching job. It was that you wanted to give him an extra title, a little bit more control, so that he felt like he was going to get a little extra to come here versus going with his buddy Ed Donatel out there to Minnesota. All right, Purdy back in shotgun. Wow, they got a 1st down. Jeez, that's a big 1st down there. Deebo Samuel with the carry. Cowboys able to hem him up a little bit there. Looks like I got some flags. Drunk Squitter says if Anderson or Carter are gone, draft Miles Murphy. I think that's a potential likelihood there. Tyree Wilson's another guy drunk. Those would be kind of your two guys, I think. Or Levis. Daniel W. says, too many Josh Allen to Will Levis comps, but the way they move, throw doesn't look similar. Will Levis looks more like Dak Prescott to me, but faster, stronger arm. I've copiumed myself to draft him at 5. It's good to hear you're finally being brought along. I think when you make the Josh Allen, Will Levis comps on that, for at least from my standpoint, Daniel, I think others is probably different to your point on that. I don't really make it from the standpoint of they have something in the similar in the way that they, throw the ball or the ball comes out of their hand. I think that they do have two different kind of throwing motions. I think Levis is a little smoother of a thrower and the ball comes out of his hand more freer and easier than it does with Dak. Dak's more of it comes back here and then flops forward, comes back here. And then you can see him like, it's not just smoothly coming through as one process. It comes back and then this, and he makes it work. Niners are about to maybe bust this in here. They got 1st and goal. But Levis his whole motion flows together very nicely to me. Everything just comes right together and it snaps out of his hand very quickly. And his lightning release is, to me, faster. Really, his release is even faster than Josh Allen or Dak Prescott for that matter. Now, Allen's got way stronger arm. But as far as, Levis with the accuracy and stuff like that, I guess I can see some of that with the Dak there on that. I do think he moves a little bit better than Dak. I think he's going to be a little faster when you see his 40 time. But yeah, you're right. Allen's been probably beat to death a little bit on that. And for me, it was more of the position by the way they play the position more than it is about their physical comparison. Brian says, no quarterback before round 3 if Geno resigns. Sign me up for that. Randall McDaniel with a $5 don't-know. Thank you, Randall. I really appreciate it. Says, what's up, Brando? Cowboys are going to get this dub. Tell me about the defensive end from Texas Tech. He's a real big guy. I've said my comp for him, Randall, is I think he's Julius Peppers minus 20 pounds. Peppers, a former great for the Carolina Panthers, played in this league, 20 years, just about? Just a big, freakish guy, right? Hulking, big, freakish guy. Legitimately just tall, long, not light in the pants, strong as hell, while also being pretty quick for a guy that is that big. From a physical potential standpoint, he is exactly what you'd like to come off the conveyor belt, Brandel, if you're going to pick in the top 10. From a refinement standpoint, from a technical standpoint, from just having a natural feel for pass rushing and what he needs to do out there, he is definitely still a work in progress. So while you're getting the physical potential and all of the upside that you love to see in a player, if you were to take him at that point, you also have we got a lot of work to do to get this guy to the place he needs to be. And if you're asking for instantaneous returns from Tyree Wilson, you're going to be left wanting. He's probably going to take a little bit of time to develop, but it's hard to find guys that are this big, this long, this strong, and this quick. They don't proliferate drafts, Randall. They don't. And that's the part where he really jumps off the tape, where you can feel his size, you can feel his strength, you can feel how fast he moves for a guy his speed. When he one-gaps, when he shoots the gap, he is very hard to deal with, not only because he's quick, but if you're a little bit late in reacting to him, Randall, and you try as a lineman to get your hands on him, you've lost the leverage war because he's already kind of half past you. And so you're sort of pushing half a man as he gets past you at that point. And he's a large man. So even if he was like maybe an undersized pass rusher making that move through, even a guy like, let's say, a Will Anderson type, you can maybe throw him off the tracks a little bit, right? Get him thrown past the quarterback, let your quarterback step up into the pocket. But when you have a guy like that, your little push ain't going to do a whole lot, right? It ain't going to do a whole lot to disrupt what he's going to try to do. So I love his top end. I really do. He's got to play some inside, outside for you at the next level because he's so big. Very, very exciting player in that respect of things, but still kind of a raw product. And part of why I'm open to trading back rather than just taking a guy like that there or a Miles Murphy Randall comes from that fact that I'm not getting more certainty here that I'd normally like to get top 5, where I've got a more of a finished product. There's less for me to have to solder off the sides and get the sandpaper out and get it smoothed off over here. He's just ready to go. And you don't quite have that here, but the physical potential is in many ways almost kind of limitless with that guy. Niners going to run this ball right up the middle with Christian McCaffrey and get themselves a touchdown. They said, we're done messing about here. We're done messing about. Can't blame him on that. And Randall, thank you for the $5 don't-know, brother. That catch was unreal by CD. Megan says, disagree. I fully believe that Desai is going to be the next Seahawks head coach, and I do understand your point about new owners, but I'm betting on Desai as the next head coach. We'll see. We'll see on it, Megan. And if you're right, I'll give you a ton of credit for being right on it. But I would be very shocked if a new owner comes in here looking at NFL history and understanding what happens when new owners come in and the want to turn things over, even if things are going good, the want to get your guy in. And again, it backtracks to the ego part of this, where I buy a football team because I want to build a winner. And then I want some credit for that building of that winner, and that's a part that if I'm taking on coaches from within, maybe I'm a little less able to say that, but we'll see. We'll see with them on that. I did lose my score on the top. What happened here? Sorry about that, folks. I'm bad about keeping the score up today for some reason. Just off my game this week a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know why, you guys. I don't know why. Randall says Kittle looks like Kid Rock and Joe Dirt. He does. Herbicide last year's class was a better class. I think it does. Yeah, that cat cracks me up. She is. She's a funny cat, man. Rodney, Brandon, this is huge year for the Pete. If the Hawks do not blow it out of the park, it's going to backfire on Pete big time. He will be the villain as the result. I think potentially so. I mean, if it does backfire and you're not good, I think he's always going to get you a pretty decent team where it's not going to completely just blow up. I think, as I've said with Pete, he's got a good floor on every given year to being able, even on a lesser roster, to get something out of him. But it's on him at this point. It is. He's going to get the talent. They're not going to be able to sit there and say, as they've said the past couple of years, well, we just don't get a pick in the top 10. We just barely ever get a pick up there. It's hard. Oh, we're spending all this money on the quarterback. It's hard to have money in other places. Well, you're going to have all the money to spend. You're going to have all the draft picks. In fact, more than your average draft picks. So the excuses with it will go away. But I think that they're going to get this turned in the right direction. And I don't think we're going to necessarily have to be wondering that necessarily, thinking those thoughts. But you're right. It's something that's on the table as a possibility. Megan says, I've said from day one that I believe Desai's the next head coach, and nothing has changed my mind. Well, I mean, the fact that Megan, if he is interviewing for other jobs, that's a little bit less of an indication that he knows that he's on a fast track to being a head coach with the Seahawks, right? So, I mean, just stick with me on the mouth on this. I'm going to go be a defensive coordinator with the Cleveland Browns, theoretically, a team that turns through coaches, like some people turn through Tic Tacs, and he's going to take the risk of going and being that DC with that head coach there who's coming off a bad year and potentially could be fired after a year, leaving a situation where he knows he's being earmarked to be the next head coach. It would seem to indicate to me, Megan, that him simply going out there and even listening to those interviews is indicative of the fact that he's not been made that promise, or that that's not been made clear to him necessarily. And if it has, is he willing to make that choice in that way? I wouldn't think so. But we'll see. Like I said, Megan, I'll give you ultimate credit on that if you're right on that one. Cowboys got Ezekiel Elliott dragged down on the run. Boy, he is just nowhere near the same running back he once was. Like that run right there is a 6-yard run in prime Ezekiel time. Like first year in the league, that's a first down run. There he gets dragged down by an arm tackle. It's kind of crazy to see on Elliott, just with how physical he was as a runner when he first came in. Paul says, I would love to see the Seahawks first round this year and 4 second rounders this year and extra picks next year. Me too, Paul. Sign me up. Sign me up. Cowboys got a 3rd and 1. They're going with a heavy look here with Elliott. Elliott blasts forward, gets the first down. 13:44 to go here in the 4th quarter. Jason says, I think Gino will get 3 years, $90 million, 44 guaranteed. It's probably somewhere around that neighborhood of things. Does seem like Seattle's going to try to re-sign him. Megan says, I hear you, B, but disagree on Desai. Have you considered what happens? The new owners decide to keep what's in place for continuity. Probably won't happen, but what if it does? Well, it is a possibility of happening. So I don't want to say, Megan, there's no chance of it. There's a chance. The thing that I would offer though with you on that is just, again, they're going to need to be pretty blown away probably by Desai to make that determination and choice. And we'll see. I don't have a track record of it either, Megan. I have a lot of track record, Megan, of owners coming in, there being a coach, there being general managers in place. And not only do they look to change out the coach, they look to change out the general manager too. There's a wide track history of owners taking over. That's the rule of thumb. That's if I look by and large on ownership changes, that tends to be what happens, right? We're seeing it literally going on right now with Denver, right? With the Walmart family. They waited about 5 minutes to go and try to go find themselves a new coach. No patience involved in that scenario at all. And that's just the way that it kind of does go. So I'm leaning a little bit into the given history of this a bit and where this has been going through the past. But, we'll see. Desai's star is rising in the NFL, and he's a guy that is on track to eventually become a head coach. So I guess it is possible, but just doesn't necessarily fit to what I've seen from a historical standpoint either. Jason says, Anderson's too small, no bend. I want Carter to trade back. He's got a little bend. Brandon, not a lot, but a little bit. Amazing deal. Brandon, would you sign off on a trade sending number 5 and 83 to Carolina and getting 9 and Brian Burns in return? 83. So, 3rd round pick. A 3rd and 5, and I get back 9. Brian Burns. I don't know. That's a hard one, Mason. That's a really good trade scenario. The part that makes it hard for me to say yes on that is that I got to sign Brian Burns to a 25 to 30 million a year deal, which is what he's going to want. So I got to pay on top of making that trade, which I don't love that. You know, I'm not a huge fan of that. Probably not, because where we're at with our edge players right now, I feel solid enough that that's just not the proper place to attack. Chad Hart says the Seahawks played San Francisco better than Dallas. Well, they felt like we provided more of a fight offensively speaking. I'll say that. Cowboys don't have a lot of answers here against this Cowboys defense or against this 49er defense. And Brett Maher is going to try another pretty long kick here. Cowboys down 19-16. The kick is down. The kick is up. The kick is through. Cowboys maintain within 4 points. Paul says, I really wish we had signed Dan Quinn as a head coach, keep Waldron, and promote Pete Carroll to football czar. That would have been nice. Jason says, whoever wins this game will get wrecked next week. Well, Eagles are looking like a buzzsaw, aren't they? Flying Blind, what's up, man? Appreciate you jumping in the chat. It says, if Anderson is there at 5, do you take him? I think you have to, unless you get an offer you really can't refuse. I really like Wilson. Yeah, Tyree Wilson is a really nice player. He's very interesting, and boy, just to have that mold of clay like that is hard to lock in on, hard to find. Like I said, they don't come down that conveyor belt Flying Blind, They come down at that certain size. He's come down in a kind of a unique one. I think you're right. I think if you've got Anderson sitting there, you got to take him. I think you do. I've said I don't quite think he's a generational talent. He falls just a little bit short of that in my estimation from where some people have him at, but nonetheless, not far from that. And I certainly think he's going to be a dynamic, impactful player at the next level. And he is better than what you have coming off the edge. And something Flying Blind that General Snyder has talked about in their evaluation of players is that it sometimes doesn't necessarily matter the players. This is especially along the realm of picking for best player available. It doesn't always matter that you have a position stacked up. It might, like if it's left tackle or right tackle, but when we're talking about the edge, where you have 3 guys, one in Mafe, who's shown you flashes, but untested, Uchenna Nwosu, who's good, just a little bit short of being great, maybe. And then in Darrell Taylor, you've got a lot of variance in what you're going to get. Not sure on that. Having a guy like Anderson is more certain than all 4 of those guys and what he brings to the stage. And so if it's better than what you already have in your roster, according to what Schneider's told us in the past, that's going to be something that informs them on whether or not to pick a player. And that will be, in my opinion, the case with Anderson, and that he is going to be a guy that causes you to have to go make that selection, because he does improve your roster in that way. He's just uniquely gifted. He really is. He's as naturally talented as anybody in this draft on the offense or the defensive side of the ball. And I think that just makes it kind of a no-brainer at that point. And Tyree Wilson, that's our consolation prize. It's not the worst consolation prize, Flying Blind. Brian Myers says, but if Pete leaves first and decides head coach, new owner may keep him. Well, that could happen if he's already installed as a head coach and Pete's gone. But Pete's going to be the coach next year. And I think the team's going to sell very shortly after 2024. So, if you've got Pete leaving next year, he would need to establish then Desai as the head coach prior to the new owner taking over. And then Desai would have had to have proven himself enough to that new owner to then remain on as the head coach. So I suppose it's possible. It seems kind of hard for it to all go down quite that way, though. If there was more a couple of years before new ownership was coming in, I might think it possible, but Pete doesn't look like he's wanting to retire anytime soon. He's shown no inclination, and that new ownership's coming in, I think. Jason Wolf says, defender from Texas Tech, Big 12 defenders, LJ Collar and Jordan Brooks. He won't be any good. Haven't had a lot of luck with Texas Tech players, Jason. You're all right about that. That's a good point, man. That is a very good point. And you are a little bit of a lesser competition with that team and what you're playing in a conference there. Not a lot of great defenders coming out. That's a good point. Corona says, really, this decide conversation is better next offseason when we potentially get our new owners because another team will nab him or they won't. True. We might be talking all about this and then we end up coming and find that Cleveland's going to make him the defensive coordinator or something, you know? AI says, Brando, when are you going to mock drafts with polls? That was fun. Oh, we'll be doing another 2.0 here probably pretty soon. I'm sure I'm going to run about 15 of them before we get to the draft. So they are very popular and I love doing it. So we'll try out a different simulator on the next one, but absolutely, we'll get one going here pretty soon. Yeah, Jason Wolf, I get it. Big 12 defenders. It's kind of rough sledding with those guys. All right, Purdy's back in shotgun now. You've got 3 wide here. He's going to hand it off. 49ers are just trying to bleed this clock here. Doing a good job of it. Nice run, 6-7 yards. Flying Blind says, whether we trade back or not, I think our first 2 picks should be on the defensive line and in the secondary. Maybe Trenton Simpson if the value is there. Sign me up, man. I think hitting the defense hard in this draft, Flying Blind. Some have said do the first 3 picks, earmark them for the defensive side of the ball, you know, and take your best defenders there. I wouldn't hate that approach. I wouldn't. Grug says, thoughts on Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft? I have to take a look at it. I didn't have a chance to see what he had said. Let me take a peek. I guess I should type in mock draft. Mock draft. So let's see here. Well, it's not coming up. Man, Google sucks sometimes. Here we go. So he's got us taking Tyree Wilson off the edge. So that's that's the guy I'm talking about. Can see it. It makes a lot of feasible sense why that'd be the next guy that you would land on, Greg, for who would be available there. So, you know, I think in that scenario, he's got Carter and Anderson off the board. And so, let me double check. I want to say I didn't look at that close. Nice throw by Purdy there to complete that on 3rd and 2 for a first down. 49ers about to wrap this sucker up. So he's got young. Yeesh. Hold on here. Does he have them taking Carter? Yeah, so he's got Carter and Anderson off the board. That would lead you to that. That would lead you to that place, Grug. Niners are going to put this in a very important position here with the Niners. I mean, Cowboys got to keep this to a field goal here. Give their offense a chance. It makes sense, though, Grug. It made sense. Got my stats. Sorry, guys. I'm bad with the stats. Here we go. That should update now. All right. Purdy with the give. Another nice carry. The Niners are getting like 4 or 5 yards a give here, if not more, every carry. Wonder if that Cowboy defense starting to wear down after a long day of being on that field. Let me see something here. You got, the time possession's pretty close in this one, I guess. All the same, though, the Niners have made a pretty good job, it seems like, of staying pretty committed. 23 carries. Good job of the Cowboys defense today. All right, Purdy's on the 37-yard line, back in shotgun. Tight splits here. Play clock, they're trying to eat all that time. They're going to call a timeout. Makes sense. Big Country, Jim Schwartz got the new DC job. My bad. Okay. I didn't see if it was officially announced or not. There were rumors, but then, you know. Megan says being interviewed doesn't mean he's taking the job, though, B. I mean, not necessarily, but why interview if you're not wanting to take the job? What would be the reason for that? Megan says, and I'll crow if I'm right and apologize if I'm wrong, but you don't have to apologize, Megan. I like that you got a solid feeling on it. And if you got a feeling on it, that's just how I mean, just no reason to apologize. You just happen to be right or happen to be wrong. Nothing wrong with that. Shoot, if I had to apologize for every time I was wrong, I would be spending nothing but apologizing on this channel. Yeah, it's... DVN says, who do I see becoming a head coach? Could you expand on that question a little bit more, DVN, on what you mean on that? Who do I see being our next head coach? Or who's on our who's on our coaching staff right now who could become a potential head coach. If it's talking about our potential head coach of the future, I'm not sure. I think that it's really early to tell because we don't know the type of owner who's going to come in. We don't know, maybe that new owner comes in DVN and they want an offensive-minded approach, Bald Club. I want an offensive head coach. That's the easiest way to go and that's the easiest way to go and become a winning team is not to bring a defensive-minded coach in, but to get an offensive-minded coach. So I want that. We don't know if that owner is going to come in and make that kind of call. And so it makes it hard to predict necessarily who the next guy would be if you're meaning it by that question. I think it's really tough to tell. Brian Myers says Dallas has no offense other than Lamb without Pollard. It's true. And with Pollard going down, they showed him getting carted out. That leans them out that much more. You can see it. They just don't have a lot to go to. And Elliott just does not. I mean, he's not going to be a Cowboy next year. Let's put it that way. Chad Hart says Sean Payton would be a good coach for Seattle. After all, he never had a bounty out on Seattle. It's true. It's true. I do think he's going to probably end up, it sounds like maybe Denver's going to pay him like $30 million a year or something. So he's going to pay the price to go there. Jason, San Francisco will be ahead by 6 or less with 12 seconds left in the game. Dallas will have the ball at San Francisco 49 and Dak will run a draw and watch time expire. You heard it here first. That sounds familiar, Jason. I feel like I saw that game play out within the last couple of years. Jason Wilson. Oh, you like Wilson? That's why you passed on my Big 12 defender take? No, not at all. I just was behind on the chat, man. I think your take's on point. Big 12 defenders, we can go down the line on a list of guys that have been questionable at the NFL level. I mean, you mentioned a couple that are on our own team that are on that way of things. I do think a little bit of the assessment matters in the type of player that you're bringing on. And, when you look at a guy like LJ Collier, that's a guy with not a lot of production at the college level who didn't have first step quickness, didn't have bend, who was an older prospect. You could see that one coming down the track, and that's a little bit absent of being Big 12 defender or not. That was simply, he's not good enough. And it's pretty obvious if you just watch the tape on the guy. The team fell in love with him off of what he did at I think it was the Senior Bowl where he played really well. And that's what won him into it. With Jordan Brooks, again, a guy that you weren't able to test on the 40 because he was coming off an injury. You fell in love with him as a run stuffing defender. But unlike the difference to me on Wilson with that Jason Wolf is that I feel like Wilson's got way more top end ability than either of those two. And he's displayed that top end ability on the college level, whereas either of those two did not. No matter whatever Jordan Brooks showed as far as his flash as a run defender at the college level, he never showed you ability to be good in coverage outside of those rare moments when he was in man coverage, which wasn't often. So I think Wilson's got a level of talent that's just a bit different from those other guys. But your point's absolutely on point in that respect of, yeah, Big 12 defenders are guys that will flash out there in college and show you a lot. And you get back into the draft and you get them onto football teams and they kind of sometimes don't always give you the best play. They're not always the best defenders. So I think it's right. We got a 1st and 10 here from the 28-yard line. Niners are just bleeding down this clock. We're already 5:57 here in the fourth quarter. AI says Tyree would be a better pick than Anderson, I think. Oof, I can't get on board with that one, man. Not at all on that one myself. Anderson's a much better player. He's much, much further along in the development cycle of things. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you. Says the Senior Bowl starts in a week. Combine starts end of February. Draft going to start ramping up. Oh, it is. I'm gonna be trying to live stream during, I think, the Senior Bowl if I can, or at least a couple days when they're having their practices, if I can get a good stream into being able to watch the live action on it, Randall. But yep, we're going to start diving here into the depths of combine times and getting into pro days and looking at the Senior Bowls and the one-on-ones and it's going to get geeky in here. It's going to get real geeky in here. TJ says Turpin had a touchdown on that return if he hit the edge. It's possible there. Yeah. Greedy does it. Wilson is not even filled out yet. He could easily add 15 pounds of muscle and be good. He is. He's got a nice, big, natural frame, and you're right. You could absolutely add even more weight onto him. And then at that point, once you've added weight onto him, I think, Greedy, this is something I don't think Anderson's going to be able to do at the next level. You could move at times him inside. You want to put him in as a defensive end. You want to flip to more 4-man fronts and have him as like a 3-tech. He can do a lot of those type of things if you did add a little bit more of that weight onto him. And good point, man. He absolutely has the frame to be able to sustain it. Brian says, if no Carter or Anderson, Murphy or Wilson, that's where I would go. Yeah. Jason Wolf, I'd get Brian Flores as head coach after Pete. I like him too, man. Maybe a little bit of worries with him on being the people person. Sometimes those former Patriot coaches are they're cantankerous. Very, very cantankerous. All right, Purdy is in shotgun, 2nd and 10, 3:52 to go here. All the way down the 19-yard line of the Cowboys, and that ball's going to get thrown into the dirt. 2nd down and 10. Big play coming up here now. AI, Wilson, Simpson, Ika. Like it. That'd be a good draft, man. Corda says, you can tell Niners know how to dice up this defense because Quinn is a Pete Tree guy. The Cowboys have done pretty good defensively here today, but definitely Shanahan knows what to do against this type of defense. That's for sure. He's had a long history, including Quinn. These guys both went head to head back in the days, right? His defense went up against Shanahan's offense, so Shanahan got a lot of practice run up against the Coach Carroll defense when he was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons. All right, 3rd down. He's going to try to scramble with it. And Purdy's going to be drugged down at the 11-yard line. Good job by the Cowboys. They're going to force a 4th down and give their offense a chance with a lot of time left on the clock. Jason says, I guess Tyree Wilson would make sense since Pete and John like to draft defenders that don't tackle really well. Mason Dale, Yobi, what do you think? What do you think Grady Jarrett would be worth in a trade? He's got a pretty big base salary, Mason, and I think he's starting to get a little bit older as a player. He's getting closer and closer to 30, and he's an undersized defensive tackle that relies on quickness. So he's not like one of those big Ndamukong Suh type guys that are just so big and freakishly strong. Once they lose a step, they can still kind of sustain. I would wonder with him on that. I probably wouldn't give more than a 3rd or a 4th round pickup for Grady. That'd be about it. Fritz says the Santa Clara crowd has no juice. It's hard, Fritz. It's really hard for them to scream when they've got a wine glass in one hand and you got a plate of cheese in the other. There's a lot of going on here. You can't be as much there. You got to be right here, Just the way it is down there in San Fran, man. It's wine country. Devian, Crispy Chris says Niners will eat the Eagles for breakfast. Look at that defense. Maybe. Eagles got a good defense too. Deviance is like taking over the team after it's sold. Answer makes sense. I guess who would you prefer if you've ever looked? I think the guy that's on the rise, that maybe the timing would be just right at the right moment with this DVN. And I've watched him for a long time. And that's a guy that would be Lincoln Riley. If he can continue to sustain the early success he's had at USC and bring that program up and running in the way that we saw Coach Carroll do similarly. I mean, the USC program was in a similar state when Riley took it over to when Carroll took it over. Very, very similar. And so if he's able to turn that thing around in that way and continue to show off that he's one of the more brighter offensive minds at the college scene, then he would definitely be a guy that I'd be very interested in bringing in here. I would prefer to have an offensive-minded coach first and foremost. The NFL, when you look around it across the league, the defensive coaches just don't seem anymore to get quite as far as the offensive coaches. And I just feel like when I look at some of the defensive coaches across the league that drive their team defense first, a lot of them have an older methodology that they're applying that's a little bit outdated and can only sometimes take the team so far, even when it is having some success. So probably an offensive-minded coach first. Riley would be a guy, I guess. It's hard to know who, though, will be available at that time. A guy like Mike Tomlin, even though I said I would go for an offensive-minded coach, if something happens with him and the Steelers and he was to be cut away, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that on the other side of things. But I don't have a lot of good names for you other than that. It's hard to kind of know who will be there. We're talking at least 1 year down the line and maybe 2 years. And folks, let me get a little more coffee. I'll be right back. Oh, sorry, kitty. All right, you got Dak and company with a 2nd and 10. Definitely probably getting, maybe not down to 3 times. Boy, this might be 3 down territory if you're the Cowboys here. Dak and shotgun. Everyone's running a real deep route here. He's going to take a shot deep. Oh. Dak just has no arc. He's like the anti-moonball. It's like he was trying to get that to Gallup and just threw that. Boy, Dak recognizes this stuff so late, and that throw's got to... He's been kind of unimpressive today. I can see why some of the Cowboys fans are kind of souring on him a little bit. There's a couple throws deep that he's been late on. He doesn't have the arm strength to be that late on those deep throws. Uh-oh. Drag down. It's going to come down to 4th down now. Boy. Cowboys offense, that Niners defense is good. They are good. There's no doubt about it. Jason Wolf says, I heard on Chat Sports that Jamal Adams might be a Dallas trade target. Have you heard anything? I haven't heard anything on that, Jason. I think the Chat Sports people sometimes just throw stuff up at the wall and see what sticks. So, it's... I think if you're making that trade, if you're Seattle, you're not getting a lot back. That's for sure. You're not getting like a 2nd rounder back for you're just offloading him to offload him at that point. So I don't know if Seattle's going to be willing to trade him at his lowest, especially because you're going to have to eat a lot of dead money to move him. That's a big part of it. If Dallas wants him, then they got to pay more of the cost to get him then because you're going to have to eat that dead money. Paul says, my dream draft with Jalen Carter, Osiris Torrance, Saka Ika, and John Schmitz at center. That'd be a solid draft, Paul. I couldn't be mad at that. Gizmo says Tyree Wilson might be great. Past Big 12 defenders scare me off of him. It does give me some reticence. I'm not going to say that doesn't have some factor into it for me too, Jason, but I think it can't be the only denominator that drives you one way or another on a player, right? You don't want to just be the broad brush guy that says, well, I got to say no to any Big 12 defender because they always all suck. I mean, we can certainly find success stories within the Big 12 too. I think you do have to be a little more hesitant in your approach on those kind of players, and you do have to kind of look at them through the lens of the difference versus the teams that have to play in the SEC, players that have to play in the SEC. But I think your point still stands on this. Wow. 49ers come out throwing on 1st down and get a 1st down. Ballsy Shanahan. And he knows, somebody mentioned, they know that Quinn designs to a Coach Carroll defense, even though Quinn's changed a lot of this defense up, the philosophy is still going to be the same, which is 1st down on this kind of situation. You're going to be amped up to try to stop the run first and foremost. Niners taking advantage of that. I love the aggressive approach by the Niners. That's what you want your team to do. Go take the game. Go win the game. Don't try to eke it out. Go win it. Beautiful. Henry M says Dak losing to Mr. Nobody and Mr. Relevant. Yes. Randall says Dallas scores a touchdown. Do they go for it? No, I don't think they would have gone for it. They would have gone with the kick. You can make an argument they should, though. Greg says, I'm sick and tired of people thinking Purdy is good. My German Shepherd could throw up 2 touchdowns in Shanahan's offense for crying out loud. Yeah, and certainly Niner Country has gotten really enraptured by him, but I just think he's been fine. His scrambling has helped him out quite a bit in clearing through, and he certainly can think on his feet smartly in those situations where times and plays break down, but he's also limited. Yeah, you're right. Not that great. Megan says, Lincoln Riley just got to USCB. We'd like him for a couple more years, please. Well, we might need him instead here. He might have more of a bigger job somewhere else. Should he do the village work, the missionary work in the little village, or should he come to the city and help everyone? And the village work's important. Okay. That USC village work is very, very important. Okay. He's getting the inoculations out there. He's getting them, the wells dug and all that stuff. But if we just get him over the city, we need some help with some of the piping, some of the infrastructure. Might be a little more valuable over here, Jason Wolf, Jerry Jones is going to be mad. I'm wondering who Dallas' next coach will be. Sean Payton, maybe. Maybe that's why Payton hasn't picked a spot, as he's waiting for Dallas to enter into the fray. Megan says, would love to hear Jerry speaking to Cosell about this game, please. All right, I got you. I'm here today, Mr. Howard Cosell, if you would like, with one Jerry Jones, the pugnacious, persnickety head coach of your Dallas. Oh, sorry, called you the head coach. I forgot. You're just the... Oh, wait. You're also the general manager. Listen now, okay? I hear your joke there, Mr. Cassell, and I know you're a legend, all right? I know you're a legend, but you need to watch your mouth right now. We're losing. Why don't you shut the hell up? I don't care about you. Get that cigar out your mouth and you shut the hell up with your dirty mouth. I didn't speak dirty in the least, Mr. Jones. I was merely reflecting about the eminent level of control that you partake within the organization, which is highly unusual for an owner. It's unusual, but it's brought us championships, hasn't it? It brought you championships when you had Jimmy Johnson as head coach. You then got liquored up like some Navy drunk off the boat for a week, saying anyone could do what he did. Any number of... I know what I said. Shut your mouth again now, okay? I was part of that too. That wasn't all Jimmy Johnson. I made those picks. That was me. We're in the playoffs right now. Here, right now. To me, I picked these players. I put them in that position, Howard. I don't want you undercutting me on this. I'm not undercutting it. It's been 30 years since you've won a championship. I don't think it's a big leap to say you have lost your way. I've had enough of this. I'm done with this interview. Howard. Done. I got to lose the game and I got to take this from you two as well. We're going to come back and win this game. We're going to surprise you. Not likely with the way this 49er offense is taking your Cowboys to the woodshed and smacking them bare cheeks. That's good as I got. We got 2nd and 9, 1:53 to go here. 2 timeouts for the Cowboys. Little I formation look here for the Niners. Pitch play out wide. Elijah Mitchell with some space to work. He's going to get the first down, and this game is over. Niners are going to the conference championship again. Okay, well, we'll make our peace with it. What has Lincoln Riley won? I don't know. Don't take my answer too seriously on it. You know, he did great with Oklahoma. He's produced some NFL quarterbacks who've been the number 1 overall pick. His offense is very inventive. So I like him as a head coach. I think he's on the rise. So does he still have maybe some more to prove? Maybe. But part of this also comes out of the Place House where there's just not a lot of great coaching names out there right now either. So I'd love for us to be able to get a Sean Payton type, but I don't know if that guy's going to be out there in a year. But this is the part of the hard exercise of trying to make a call on that coaching where I don't know who will be available or what will be available. I was just trying to give him a name, give him a good answer. And I like Lincoln. Jason says Jerry Jones wanted Sean Payton before. Dallas head coach is not very good. It's true. It's true. I don't think they've been completely sold on McCarthy from the moment they hired him. Jason Wolf says Lincoln Riley won the preseason hype award for belief in teams' chances at a national title. Yeah, I mean, like, again, though, so I think he has done something. He's taken that USC program and made them better than what they were prior to him being there. I think the Oklahoma program was better with his arrival than before he got there. So, you know, the team he took over with USC was not stacked with 5-star talent across the board like we think about in the Coach Carroll times of USC. That was a program that was in a lowly state, and he had to come in there and turn that around. So I guess for the people that are anti-Lincoln Riley, what's the expectation? He was supposed to come in there and within a year have them into national prominence again as a national title team. I think that's not really factoring in well enough the state of where USC truly was as a program when he came in there. It takes a little bit of time to establish yourself, and he's taking them steps forward. We'll see if it continues, but I think he's a real good coach. I do. Is he perfect? No. Is there more to prove? Yeah, maybe, but it's not like he's chopped liver either. He certainly has way more of a pedigree than a guy like Kingsbury getting taken out of the college ranks. His defenses are trash. He makes Ken Norton defense look like steel curtain. He's got that's something he's going to have to prove. And we'll see if he can get that turned around there with USC. But I think that this is also a little bit of the benefit if you hire a coach like that, know where his weaknesses are. You pair a coach like that then with a very smart defensive mind. So the Rams did this very same thing initially with Sean McVay. They knew Sean McVay was an offensive-minded coach. That was his bread and butter, and they wanted to offload the defensive stuff for him. So what did they do? They brought in Wade Phillips, right? A very legendary defensive coordinator in this league. And it was essentially, Sean, you worry about the offense, and Wade Phillips will worry about the defense. So you've created these kind of situations in the past. I don't think if it's enough in itself, House, to preclude me from hiring him if I can go down that same kind of model that's been utilized before to great success. 3rd and 8 here, 137. Niners are going empty. Cowboys are showing a blitz. They drop out of it. Little bubble screen. Cowboys are on it. They make the tackle. This will take the clock down to about 40 seconds for the Cowboys here on offense when they get the ball back. D-Man says the 49ers are being a good example that you don't need a great quarterback as long as other positions are solid. They are, D-Man. That's my current ongoing theory. Is that if you can establish more of a supporting cast team around a solid quarterback or a quarterback with a certain set of skills, like Liam Neeson, I'm a man with a certain set of skills, then you can go far. Super Bowl is not out of line. Not out of line. It certainly is within reasonable approach. I think these teams have shown you that. DVN says, yeah, not the biggest fan of chat sports. I'm not really either. I don't like let's invent ideas today. And they seem to get a lot of traction. They got like great SEO where they're able to get their videos pushed out everywhere. And it probably helps with some of the content that they come up with. But it's a lot of sometimes pie in the sky stuff out there. How many catches does George Kittle have today? Kittle has 5 catches for 95 yards in this game. 49ers are going to punt here. Oh, there's a stoppage on the clock. That's interesting. I guess they called it, Niners called the timeout. Woo! Well, are we going to see the legend of Dak go now? Fair catch caught at the 6-yard line. 94 yards, 45 seconds. Echoes of a John Elway in Cleveland in 87. He had the length of the field in very little time. Dak Prescott with 20 comeback drives in his NFL career. What you got, Dak, today? What you got? We shall see. All right, Dak back in shotgun here. You can't waste any time. You got to get completions. And he's already going to roll out and waste time. And then he's almost going to get sacked in the end zone. Whew. Dak is making quarterback look hard. He's making that. And it's the Niners defense too. They're making it. But it's making it a little rough. Big Country says Sean Payton transformed the Saints organization. They were nothing before he got there. He did. He's a great coach. Cowboys would be smart for bringing him in instead of McCarthy. That's an upgrade if they can pull it off. Megan says, USC a little village bee. You've never been to the Collie with a full house. I was just looking for a close metaphor, not a perfect metaphor, but a close metaphor. Henry M says, how many years, you're asking Big Country, how many years did he have Breeze? How many Super Bowls? Yeah. I mean, he didn't have, but it's hard to win Super Bowls, man. It is. I'll say this about Henry M. When we talk about being a consistent winning organization with the Hawks over the last 6-7 years, the Saints have had a lot more playoff success than our current Seahawks had in the playoffs over that time. And they've had years where they've gotten straight jobbed in the playoffs, Henry. I mean, they've got one of the more famous, horrific calls in NFL history that really cost them a chance of going to a Super Bowl. In that Rams game where there's that pass interference that doesn't get called. Then you go back the very next year and you've got an offensive pass interference on the Minnesota Vikings tight end in the end zone on a touchdown catch for game that goes uncalled. I think there's also some explanation for that. He also got Breeze when he was a little bit older as a quarterback, so he was kind of getting to the back end of Breeze's career real quick, and having to kind of overcome through that a little bit, I think, at the end as well. Brees was not as dynamic through the last 4 or 5 years of his career as he was, when he was really in that prime state. Mason says, what do you hope we do at the wide receiver 3 spot this offseason? Pete seemed really optimistic about Drake Young and Eskridge in his place late last presser. I don't have any real hope for Eskridge, but I love the upside of Drake Young. And I think that the team does too. General Manager John Schneider talked about it in the 710 ESPN interview that he just conducted over a couple days ago about, that being one of the most excited guys that he is out there in Drake Young. I would like to, if not bring back Marquise Goodwin, go back there and find more of a solid veteran presence that we can bring in. Maybe even draft a guy. I just don't think I can count on Eskridge at this point. And while I like Drake Young, I don't want to hitch ourselves to that as the only, he'll just develop around DK and Tyler and we'll be fine at that point. So we got to go a little bit more than that. So I'm open to a lot of different realms, Mason, but I do think you need to upgrade and improve the position. We got 5 seconds to go here. Cowboys have done a little bit to move up the field just a tiny bit, but they're going to have to try either a Hail Mary or we're going to get the pitch play stuff going down here. I think we're having a review on the catch with Dalton Schultz. Get the foot down, my guy. Boy, Schultz doesn't drag the foot. Drag the foot. All he's got to do is just drag it, and he steps so wide over the top. Seahawks Dubs, do you think this was Dallas versus the ref speed? No, not really. I mean, maybe I missed some calls on this, but I just think this was a tough game between two really great defenses, and Dallas eventually kind of broke. That interception by Dak was that's also a big moment in this game to me too, where that swung some momentum at that point. I wouldn't call it like the game-changing play, but that was also this game comes down to you got to play pretty perfect. And that's a no catch on Schultz. Jeez Louise. Jason says, I think we should trade a first-round pick for one next year. Me too. Brian Myers, stream continuing after the game over. A little bit. I've got somewhere I got to be here a little later on here this evening. We're going to stream back-to-back days here, Brian. So I'm going to be streaming here tonight, and then we're going to come back tomorrow at 5. I'll be streaming. I've got some John Schneider kind of specific stuff that I want to dive into. So we'll be doing a bit. I'm going to do back-to-back days. That means we're going to probably go a little bit less today than I normally go. But my hope here is this off season we're going to be doing more streams. And it'll be less of having just 2 times a week that we maybe can get to 3 or 4 times. But then within that, we're going to do them a little shorter so I can save my voice a little bit to be able to do more of them. Jason Wolf says Lincoln Riley had the Heisman quarterback. He did. But simply Heisman quarterback on its own with where that USC program wasn't enough in itself, Houses and Kalen DeBoer took a UW team with less talent and did the same thing. Yeah, I like DeBoer. I'm not anti-DeBoer on it. So, I mean, again, House, don't take my answer on this too crazily. You know what I mean? Like I'm asked on a coach that will proverbially hire 2 years down the road. Give me some rope on this one. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of names coming to mind. DeBoer could easily become that guy too as well. I'm very impressed by the job he's done. So I don't think that me being impressed by Lincoln Riley means I'm not impressed by DeBoer. I can be very impressed with both of them. I think DeBoer does have a little more, I know he's got a pretty inventive offense in what he does. I think there's a little more of a baseline from what I've seen from Lincoln Riley. DeBoer's just essentially done it this year. But if he continues on his same track, he would have just as bright a star to me as Caleb Williams. So I'm not anti-UW in any way, man. I'm a UW guy. D-Man, Dallas is an example of how hard it is to go in the playoffs all the time, which is why it upsets me that people give Pete Carroll such a hard time. How hard it is to go far in the playoffs all the time, which is why it upsets me that people give Pete Carroll such a hard time. Yeah. I mean, it's there's a big answer to unpack with the Dallas thing on that one, D-Man. Where they've got their own share of things that are dogging them as an organization that have gone unfixed. And there's a lot of relation to that with our own organization. And that you can go to very specific items and you go, you don't have this fixed, you don't have this fixed, you don't have this fixed. But I don't know if I'd say it's necessarily just example. It's it is hard to get in the playoffs. It is. But it's also been years and years since we've had any kind of playoff success. So I guess my answer always comes down to like, well, if we're a consistent winning team, it's like, what point do we start to get to a reality of criticizing Coach Carroll? Or coach, is it that if we go to the playoffs for 4 out of the next 5 years and we have one playoff win over that time, is that success? Is that where we like, is all of us would be happy being there? What is the demarcation line, I guess, of where it comes to a spot where it's like, okay, it's right to criticize even though you are winning more often than you're losing. And I think it's a valid question on both sides to ask, but I think that there's, as I said, when you got 2017, I got a team like the Jaguars who more playoff success by a pretty good margin than us, more wins than us in the playoffs. Then that's hard for me to go, well, we're a consistent winner. Nobody looks at Jaguars in that way. That's why I make that comparison. But we're viewed that way because what you do is you get to tack on the Legion of Boom era onto this current era. And so it looks really bright and beautiful. 2 Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl win. But you have to kind of remove both outlets to me. And you got to look at them through 2 different lenses. When you had LOB, Marshawn Lynch, and Russell Wilson on a cheap contract, and then the back half of this 7-year period that's been a little bit different. And sure enough, the Cowboys did not execute the best of final plays there on that. And that will wrap it up. Yeah, D-Man. Never Dak to Elway. I will never make that comparison. Megan says, first you wanted Lincoln to come to the Hawks, then you call USC a small school. You're now deceased to me being. I'm not sure I can forgive this as I've been a member of the Trojan fan base since Pete Carroll. It's hard, these metaphors, Megan. It's hard to find the apropos one in the moment sometimes. Yeah, no catch on that Schultz one. Drag your foot, Schultz. Drag your foot. I hate when receivers do that, where they just make the casual catch and all they've got to just tippy-toe drag that thing. Tippy-toe drag it. That's all you got to do. Jason Wolf Penix played great too. He did. Very impressive kid. Yeah, Chase, I don't know if then they can blame the refs on this one. I think they just lost that game. I think you just lost it on that one. Volcano Joe says, sorry, Brandon, haven't been on since the playoff loss. I take a long time to recover from losing to the 49ers. Laughing out loud. I'm still not fully recovered, but I'll live. No, I did the same thing, Volcano Joe. I mainly kind of checked out this week. I uploaded a couple of videos, but I didn't do as much live stuff this week just to kind of, lick the wounds and take a breath and, kind of contemplate everything a little bit. So I'm the same way, man. It's sometimes hard to just bounce right back after a loss, especially the Niners loss and having to hear from all their fans as we did. It was rough. It was rough, but it's not getting any better either because now they're going to continue to progress. Niners are tough, man. That's going to be a war next week with the Eagles and the Niners. But appreciate you, Volcano Joe. Congrats, Dirtbag. The Nugget says, wow, I can't believe our rival, the Niners, are possibly going back to the big game. Boy, can you imagine another NFC West team again getting back into the Super Bowl? Like, there is no National Football Conference. There's only the NFC West and the AFC Conference. Bengals and Philly in the big game. Yeah, that'd be an interesting matchup between those two. Now, Cowboys just looked, it was kind of a little bit like what we saw from the defenses you got in the second half against the Niners, but it looked like both sides of the ball for the Cowboys in that game, where they just looked like coming off that really solid first half overall, they just looked out of sorts and not quite on it in the details in the way that you needed to be if you're going to beat a team like this 49er team. I like some of the stuff that they had been doing, but in the game, I like some of the more of the putting Purdy under a little bit, making him a little more uncomfortable throughout, but they just couldn't get anything out of their offense. Niner defense is good though. We saw it, man. They can shut down an offense completely. Jason Wolf says, I bet Jerry Jones is steaming mad. Oh, I bet so too. People were mentioning on the stream here, Jason, about, maybe Sean Payton going there. And then I would not surprise me if we heard tomorrow that Mike McCarthy got fired and that the Cowboys are doing a full court press and will pay whatever price that it costs to go get Sean Payton brought in. And you're talking about the Cowboys organization being willing to offer the draft capital that even a team like, let's say, the Broncos can't offer, and that you can get your first round pick this year right now, and you get a higher. I know they can get the Niners first round pick, but maybe a higher pick and maybe even more as far as the second round pick goes too, because of course the Broncos are without that. But Jerry's he's mad. All right, look, we lost right now. Okay, we lost. It's tough here. We lost right now. We go to San Francisco. That's a good San Francisco team. That's a real good San Francisco team. All right. But this was a rebuild, which you don't understand right now. This was a rebuild year for the Cowboys. All right. We were rebuilding. Okay. We got a lot of older guys getting old, moving on. We got to re-inject out here. That's all we're doing. Just re-injecting. And in the re-inject year, we got ourselves out there into the second round of the playoffs. So, it's win-win for us. That's all I'm saying. That's how we do it. It's Cowboy country. We win, baby. Oh, he's pissed. I don't think he's saying that though, is he? Empower Code, Brando. Been waiting on a stream. So awesome to see you, man. Thoughts on a potential restructure candidates, seeing as our cap number is realistically around 25 million-ish factoring in the draft. Yeah, definitely. $16 million has got to go to those draft picks. That does bring down substantially what you got as far as free space. Of course, if you got to do a contract extension with Geno, you've already done a contract extension with Jason Myers, and it starts getting chipperooed really quickly. You've got Noah Fant. I think he's on a 1-year, $9 million deal. That's a potential contract extension that you could handle out there and probably lower half that hit down if you wanted to. You could apply the very same thing with Shelby Harris, whose cost is very close to what Noah Fant is costing. So, you have $17, $18 million. You could probably create another $9 million between them, $9 to $10 million in cap space there. I think you save $3 million by moving on from Quentin Jefferson. So there's another $12 million that you could create from that. I don't think you can quite yet get to the point on Lockett that you're going to really be able to restructure him in a significant way with still the bonus money that you're on the hook for with him on that particular deal. But aside from that, not a lot of other restructured candidates out there at that point, in my opinion. Everything else is probably pretty locked in. You could as well with Uchenna Nwosu sign him to a contract extension, probably lower that down. So let's add on another $4 or $5 million there that you could probably create in space if you signed him to an extension. So you could probably create in releases, renegotiations, and all that, another $17, $18 million would probably be about right around the number that you could create. But I'd expect in Power Code, you're going to see a couple of those moves because the money's going to get eaten up so fast, especially once Geno's deal comes down the pike. David Phillips is the Niners the most talented team left? Well, maybe. Maybe. That Eagles team is a very talented team too, though. Well, they're stacked up. That offensive line of that Eagles is a deeper offensive line unit than the 49ers. Niners got to beat probably on defensive line, linebackers. I think the Eagles got to beat on corners. Safety position, I'm not sure. Maybe more of a wash there. Niners got to beat on running backs. Eagles got to beat on wide receivers. Dallas Gobert, they've got a pretty good tight end there with Eagles. Pretty close between him and Kittle. Kittle's better, but is it substantial? And it's a pretty close matchup as I see it. The Nuggets says, I want the Chiefs, but Mahomes' injury isn't helping. Hard to see him win that game against the Bengals on that dodgy leg. I don't know if they're going to be able to just shoot it up with some of that Toradol or whatever, but he's going to need something. Dan W. Geno Smith is better than Dak. 100% agree with you there. 100% agree with you there. Poop Dog says Dak has the Kirk Cousins gene. The bright lights, man, they get very, very bright. Joshua, Dak's getting fired tomorrow. Yeah, I think they're stuck with him at least one more year there with that contract. Dallas messed up on that situation by waiting too long to pay him. And that's... You could really have made the argument that they should have just moved off from Dak the second he was due to be paid. Trade him, get the capital back, and then move through. But they did the mistake a lot of teams made, which is that once you have a guy, you have to pay him. Once you have a guy that's reasonably good, then he definitely has to get that next contract. As I've been offering, I don't know that that's definitely the way that it absolutely has to work out. But they paid him, and they waited to pay him late, and so now you have to pay the highest of prices then to bring him back in, and down she goes. Down she goes. It gets very hard to start to build out the rest of that team, especially with some of those other contracts that have been on the books. And especially when you compound bad decision-making like that, waiting to pay Dak, then paying a guy way more than you should for a guy that is limited, coming on the heels of paying running backs, which nobody should be paying running backs. You reset the market at the running back position with the deal you gave Elliott. That's really where Dallas comes down to why they're failing, why they're short offensively right now. You put your money in weird places a little bit with that. They draft pretty good, but the way they spend their money time sometimes is silly. Pedro, we should draft the best D-line at number 5 and draft Anthony Richardson with our own pick. Sign me up, Pedro. Sign me up. I like it. I don't know if Anthony's going to last to 20. I think he's going to rise up some boards real quick. Jalen Carter says, Jason Wolf says, Jalen Carter, trade back. We need DI, just not a defensive lineman. I'm with it. Oh, I'd love to get myself Jalen Carter. Be awesome. Scooby Snacks. I can't wait until Undisputed tomorrow where Drip Bayless blames everyone under the sun except Dak, laughing out loud. Oh, he's got the excuses already preloaded. I wonder if he tries to go to officials tomorrow, if that's where he goes with it. But this is one where, Dak Prescott struggled against that Niner defense and struggled mightily in this game. It felt like it was just, as I was saying earlier, he made it really feel like playing the quarterback positions hard in this game. 23 of 37, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I didn't think that he used his legs darn near enough. I thought he had a chance at times to use his legs, and instead he tried to throw the ball. You had to, in this game, you got to use your legs when you get the opportunity against this Niner defense, especially that wide 9 that'll sometimes fly past you with their pass rush, opening up those rush lanes for the quarterback. Megan says, I can hear Cosell laughing at Jerry from here, B. You're a silly man, Mr. Jerry Jones, and you're never going to win a Super Bowl. To hell with you, all right? No one even likes you, Cosell. Aren't you dead? Empower Code, pulling for the Bengals now. Hopefully they can get their Super Bowl this time around. Hey, let's go Bengals. Who dead? Who dead Bengals? Empower Code wanted the Bills to pull through, but Josh Allen is way too turnover prone, and that defensive line wasn't doing anything. No, for a defensive line that was pretty solid for them this year, it kind of went quiet in that game against the Bengals, didn't it? Surprisingly, I think the Bengals even had some injuries in this game on the offensive line. So you definitely look at that and go, boy, you guys should have been able to make a little bit more hay while the sun was shining there, I would have thought. I wanted to look at that game earlier. The thing that the part that you're just not doing right by to me with Josh Allen, in this game, you weren't able to run as much because you got down by points, so you felt like you had to throw it. But every game I watch the Bills, there's always this disparity where, like this game, Josh Allen's throwing 42 times, and you rushed 19 times total, with Josh Allen being the main guy that did most of the running for you. Buffalo's big issue that they have down there is not getting a running game that's working, that's consistent, that can take a little bit of the pressure off of Josh Allen. And now he has to be the cape flapping in the wind superhero. And now you're going to get some interceptions when you have no semblance of balance from an offensive standpoint of things. The Bills have had a couple of years to kind of fix this, and they need to come into this offseason and really look at it more deeper if they really want to have a hope to win a Super Bowl. I don't think they can just look at this and go, well, Josh Allen will just carry us through the day no matter what. And I will say again, it's ridiculous and remains ridiculous that the new Buffalo Bills stadium is not going to be in a dome, that they're going to continue to play outside, having a quarterback like Allen right now going into his prime, and weather elements like you got today in this game with those two teams it's kind of silly on their part. I don't know who signed off on that, but it's dumb. Jesse Lone Zeke could be what Usyk is to the Niners. He could. He's kind of more of a fullback now. Do you not get 2 interceptions by Dak is not good? How do you quarterback avoid interceptions? How does a quarterback avoid interceptions? I think he's got to be smarter with the football and sometimes wait a little bit of a beat to see it. Throw with maybe a little less anticipation in this game because of the fact, you can't afford to have 1 interception, much less 2. But indeed, especially on one of those interceptions, there were 2 defenders right next to the guy. And Dak could see it, and he had just decided he's going to throw it. Looked like he might have been able to scramble a little on that play. That's a little bit like what I'm talking about, where it's just bad decision-making on his part, and that does go to him a little bit there. Danny W. says, have you seen Dak's contract? It's terrible. Makes me feel better about the Myers contract. RFL. Go look at it. It's so bad. He's on the team 2 more years with no way out, plus $21 million in void year. Go look. I'll check it out. Let's take a peek. Let's take a look. If my sports track's kind of down right now, it looks like maybe I'm not getting anywhere here with this. Come on, sports track. There we go. Let's take a look. Boy, my internet's slow. Sports tracks just. So yeah, Dak right now, $49 million cap hit this year. Coming up, 2023. Whew. $89 million in dead money hit. Yeah, they're stuck. They're definitely stuck. 2024, it's a $52 million hit, $39 million cap. Yeah, that's 2 years at least. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and the reason they got stuck in that contract is because they got outside of the 3-year period. Like, unlike us who signed Wilson and made the choice, do we want to sign him or not? Okay, you sign him after the 3rd year. You get him then by year 4 where the deal still can be really low. You can use the base salary off year 4 and then massage the numbers out a little bit. The problem was that you wanted to use up every last one of those years of Dak's rookie time period. And so that meant the cost was going to be what it's been now and where you're at now, where now you're on the hook for a lot of money. Now you can't get out from under it. Now you're multiple years indebted to the guy, essentially. It's again where, to me, at times, the Cowboys organization strikes me as a little bit reactionary, and why they top out. I think we have different reasons for topping out over here on our end. Their reason for topping out is, number one, your owner should never be your general manager. That's the no duh here, right? Owners shouldn't be general managers ever. But then number two, the way they've spent their money and their approach, and whether or not they're actually showing you they've got a plan in place, or they just kind of seem reactionary. And it all did kind of seem just a little bit reactionary to me. But Daniel, it looks bad. That's a lot of dead money. That is a lot of dead money. And yeah, don't they now they got to pay CeeDee Lamb, don't they? Jason says, I pray someone moves up to get Richardson. We don't need a project quarterback when we can't stop the run. Great point. Rob Terrell, trade down with the Raiders or Panthers? I think those are your 2 likely trade suitors, Rob. You trade back, only go a couple picks back, but maybe pick up a future first-round pick for doing so. D Nugget says Dak has 2 iron plates in his legs. It's done. Yeah, maybe very well. It could be. It could be the case. He's just like, I don't run no more. Last time I run, my leg got twisted sideways. Devin, and he had a wide open receiver on one drive, but tried to get it into covered wide receiver laughing out loud. Yeah, he didn't seem like he was on it in his reads, Devin. And maybe the Niners defense was confusing him, which is weird because the Niners defense just kind of lines up and plays it as they're going to play it. But he looked very much like he wasn't seeing things clearly. And yeah, I know the play you're talking about where it looked like he had an open guy there just standing wide open and free and completely missed him. I know exactly the spot you're talking about. Jeff Russ, 2 clutch, says Lamb had a good game. That whole throw that went to the numbers instead of the hash summarizes Dak's accuracy under pressure. Yeah, real poor throw there on that one. Real poor throw. And again, recognizing late, even on the one that Lamb made the catch on, he still saw that late on that go route. Like that ball should have been out of his hands a good 1.5 seconds earlier so that then he's hitting Lamb on the run rather than now having Lamb have to slow down and let the defender get back into him, at the very least make the tackle after the catch. Just not on it. I've seen Dak play way sharper than he did on the back half of the schedule this year. Jason Wolf, Nwosu and Tariq are the only 2 I think are safe to start next year. Every other spot could be an upgrade. Could. I think Quandre Diggs is probably pretty well embedded in at free safety too. But yeah, not a lot. King Bomber, who am I rooting for, Brando? I'm a huge Bengals fan this time around. Wanted them to win last year and bring the Lombardi home. Yeah, I hope the Bengals get it. I like the suffering fan bases being rewarded, King Bomber. So, with the Vikings out, with the Bills out, that does leave kind of the Bengals as that next team in there that, hasn't gotten in there. So, yeah, I like to see the Bengals go. Go Bengals. Who dat Bengals? Jason Tudor says, yeah, the Bengals were missing 3 of their top 5 offensive linemen. Yes. There's no excuses for the Bills. You're playing at home. You know, the Bengals got jobbed on that whole DeMar Hamlin tie game, no contest thing, right? To even get a home playoff game. They ran away with that game with the Bills right from the onset. Like, Bills just felt out of that after like the first couple of drives. And it's strange to see a Buffalo Bill team we thought was really going to be in it this year with it versus that Bengals team. But they are a good bunch. They're a good bunch. Man, we got to start looking at that head coach and give him a lot more props down there with Cincinnati. Certainly AJ having Burrow there and doing what he's doing is a big part of it too. But that coach has done a great job there. He's taken that Eagles team to heights multiple years now running over that no other coach has been able to take there in my lifetime, going back to like the 80s with the what they had the K-gun offense, I think, back then with the blonde bomber, Boomer Esiason. Travis, oh shoot, wish I had seen this earlier. I had no idea Hawks Nest was broadcasting. I'm sorry, Travis. I've got to try to schedule these out a little bit better. But sometimes I just get the wild hair. I'm going to go live. Megan says, okay, being 12s, heading out, but I'll see you tomorrow. Sounds good, Megan. And we will be back tomorrow. By the way, folks, I'm going to be doing a stream a little bit. We're going to be kind of wrapping down some of this a little bit here. I will be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and we will be streaming tomorrow as well. I've got some tidbits from an interview that John Schneider recently gave, and I'd like to kind of go over those with you guys. So we will be back tomorrow for sure. Mark Sauce, Niners defense is a problem. Geno scored more points, and we were giving him hell. They are a problem. It's great defense, best defense in football this year. Not even close to with number 2. They're the best. Rob Terrell says, would you take Myles Murphy or Tyree Wilson? I would take Wilson. I'm more a Wilson guy, Rob. I'm more Wilson at this point. I started out on Myles, but I've come back more to Wilson. I've got some concerns with Murphy. And I got concerns with Wilson too, but I like my concerns come from a place of lack of refinement with Wilson, and with Murphy, I'm a little bit of, you just kind of disappear in games. Why? You know, I can better explain at times when Wilson disappears. I can't do it as much with Murphy. Erickson says we need actual depth at guard and center. We do, man. You need starters and you need depth. You know, as Kyle Fuller showed in the playoffs, you don't want to be going to him, right? You need your starter, you need your backup. I think it'd be ideal with center if you could go draft your center like Schmitz, bring in a Blythe guy as your veteran stopgap until the rookie's ready to go, / a good backup if you need him to fill in for a couple of games. And then a guard, certainly you're going to need to get a couple guys in here because I think Phil Haynes and Gabe Jackson will both be moving on. Yeah, Devin, Bills D was cheeks today. I don't know, maybe it was just the snowy weather and they couldn't get their feet planted, but there was guys running wide open in that secondary. D-Nugget says, if we had to beat the 49ers, do you think we could have beat the Cowboys? Yeah. There's nothing in that Cowboy team that I just saw that I didn't think we could have handled. Absolutely. Yep. D-Nugget says Stephon Diggs was pissed today. Report said he left the locker room early. Yeah, D-Nugget, I think as you said, because Big Country says, he's always struck me as a bit of a diva. And when you have a team like the Minnesota Vikings willing to move off from a player like that just heading into his prime, albeit they got good compensation for him, you still have to feel like maybe there's some headaches here. You know, there's some headaches here. It was something to me. I don't know. But I don't know if you guys ever saw the video of him in Minnesota. There's this video that was going around of like a Vikings player doing interviews, sort of like the Real Rob Report back in the day in the locker room. And they were all asking Minnesota players, you know, who's the player on this team that you wouldn't let your sister date? And it was like something out of a comedy show where every different guy he was going to was giving the same answer, which was Stephon Diggs. So, I do get some diva vibes off Diggs. I get that OBJ kind of vibes, a little bit of the Antonio vibes, you know, I wouldn't want any of it. It's a great player though. Scooby Stack says we could have beat the Cowboys. The only real problem would have been Parsons. He would have been a problem. I think we could have dealt with him. We had the tackles to handle it. Brian Myers, today's PFF mock draft, traded down twice. 19 went to Simpson, 20 Ika. At 33, Brian Branch, love that. Nolan, number 37, Nolan Smith. 83 got Steve Avila out of TCU, plus 324 first-round picks. Sign me up for that draft, Brian. Sign me up all day long for that draft. Erickson says, I heard about an AR trade. We are the known trade partners with Green Bay. We're known trade partners with Green Bay. That's possible. It's possible. I think that spot's going to look very enticing. And John Schneider already laid down the groundwork on this. He's telling you already, well, it's a very valuable spot. You can make some good trades at that spot. So he's already telling you, the trade possibility is absolutely on the table, and he's considering it. And I think you can get a pretty good price at that point. So I could see it, Erickson. $18 million for Quandre. I'll pass. David Phillips. Thanks, Brando. Anytime, man. Erickson, the Bengals play calling was nice today. It was. They had a great, you really couldn't feel what you're going to get play in and play out with them. If they were really keeping what you'd want to keep a defense on its heels, having to play that guessing game, play in and play out, and they did a great job with it. On the road, being willing to throw a little early, even in an environment like that. Ballsy, and it paid off for him. So kind of like what you saw, I think, from the Niners and the Cincinnati Bengals both today, and it's a bit about what I've been banging the drum for, and quite frankly, I think a little bit of what we didn't implement enough in the game that we played in the playoffs against the Niners, which is you got to go out there and win the game. You got to go out there from a coaching standpoint and lay it on the line and not be afraid and not try to play not to lose, but to play to win. You see the Niners in this game as they're trying to wind down the clock, and they're in a 2-minute situation. And, well, now they definitely are going to have to run the ball here. They're going to just run. They're a good running football team, so they're going to definitely run. Drops back, throws on first down, gets a first down completion. They're going to now take off another 45 seconds off that clock at the end. And that's going out and winning the game. Bengals coming out and being aggressive and throwing the ball right from the jump. Let's go out and win the game. I think that's definitely to be commended, and part of why those teams are moving on. King Bomber says, can Joe Burrow and the Bengals beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs for the 4th time in a row? I hope so. Please, God. Power Code, awesome. Looking forward to future streams. So we're going to be pumping it up, man. It's going to be full meal deal 24/7 here. So get yourselves ready. Strap on in, because we're going to have ourselves a lot of streams coming down the pipe. Jose Patricio Gonzalez Flores says, do you think this Cowboys loss can benefit the Seahawks in the draft? Not really, no. I don't think it much impacts. I don't think it really impacts things one way or another on that, Jose. They're picking behind us in the first round. So both of our first 2 picks will be ahead of them. I can't think there'll be any real effect of them. Other than, I guess, Jose, the one way that it could impact is that the Cowboys then trade first-round picks to the Saints, and then the Saints look to maybe package all of those first-round picks together to move up in the draft to then go get a quarterback. So that would be the only way that it could impact us in a roundabout way. Jason Wolf says, San Francisco fans should thank Seattle. I don't think San Francisco would go this far with Trey Lance. Maybe not. Maybe not. Hard to say, man. He hasn't had a lot of time out there on the field, but you might be right. Power Code, who are your top 5 choices at number 5? People have been saying Murphy, but he seems to die down periodically in games and feels like 8 to 10 selection. I don't know if there's any true blue chip talent at 5. I think within your question, you actually have the answer there, which really sits at the head of it for me on this in Power Code, which is that this is not a very strong draft as far as tier 1 goes. It's lacking. You get past really, to me, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, CJ Stroud, Will Levis. At that point, from my standpoint, you're getting into almost a little bit of just about quasi tier 2. It's almost like there's a tier between tier 1 and tier 2 this year. It's like tier 1.5. Yes, Murphy would be part of that tier 1.5 in Power Code. So if Carter or Anderson isn't on the board there for me to pick, if Levis is not an option, they're not high on him and it's got to be a player, probably Tyree Wilson. Then I would maybe be looking at a guy like Miles Murphy as another option, if not Tyree. But I think the real number one priority would be at that point in power code. No Carter, no Anderson, not in on Levis. Let's move back. Let's go trade to a team that wants to come get Levis and pick ourselves up extra draft capital on the other side of it and not move back that substantially far. Still able to maybe even get at that point in power code one of Wilson or Murphy. But you're absolutely on point with it. There's just not a lot of great blue chip talent in this particular draft. It is what it is. You know, the NIL, having some of these guys go back, it's definitely leaned it down just a little bit, and just the given nature of this particular draft as well. Immortal EO Tech, after seeing a bunch of mid-range paid quarterbacks fail badly this year, I don't want the Seahawks to pay Geno. Well, I don't know, man. Immortal, has there been a lot of mid-paid quarterbacks failing this year? When Derek Carr signed his deal, he wasn't signing a mid-year deal contract, right? Tom Brady's still always been pretty highly paid, though he's taken a little bit of discounts. He was going to get old at some point and fall off the cliff. I don't know, man. I mean, I guess you got your Baker Mayfields and Darnolds that are on the end of their rookie deals with their fifth year options at 18. That'd be more of a mid-grade place. I guess my point on this Immortal is that I don't think that when you're looking at the proverbial contract you're paying Geno, it truly is a mid-market deal, and that there isn't really been a baseline in current NFL history for mid-market deals. You're either being paid at the top high water mark or you're being paid at the bottom mark. A guy like Jimmy Garoppolo goes to the Niners, and when he signs this last contract he signs, that's a pretty top-end level market contract at that time. It wasn't at the $35 million high water mark average per year, but it was at like something like 27.5. That's not a mid-tier deal. You know, a mid-tier deal is, to me, somewhere in the 20 to 25 million average per year. That's half the price of what the top-end quarterbacks are being paid at that point. I just don't think that that's been yet I don't think that's yet been firmly established in the NFL. The quarterbacks you're seeing fail more often than not this year, in my opinion, Immortal, are the ones that have been paid high. Like the Dak Prescott we just saw fail. That's a highly paid quarterback. That ain't a mid-tier guy. He's being paid all the money to doing what he's doing. So I don't know if that can necessarily inform you one to the other on that one. We got to kind of go, I think, through all these guys to see who failed and who was being paid at what rate and what kind of contract where they truly are. And I think I'd offer that a lot of these guys that did fail out Immortal, more often than not, be it a Kyler Murray, be it a Carr, go down the line, it's more of the failure coming from the standpoint of a team paying them to be Superman, and they're actually more like Clark Kent. Nagasa, there's no perfect pick without any question marks. It's true. James Earl Moan says next draft class has better quarterbacks. It would seem to, yeah. Nothing wrong with waiting. Immortal says probably draft a quarterback with Drew Lock as insurance and let them battle. I could see it playing out that way. ZZ says, BJ? Question mark? I don't know what you mean on that, ZZ. Jason, if we sign Geno and draft a quarterback, I think our defense will suck next year. It's possible. You got a lot of work to do on that defensive side of it, and you might not have a lot of money to spend at that point, Jason. So you may need to get this hard work done in the draft. Erickson, I kind of think Geno may not be greedy and take a hometown discount for the Seahawks. Certainly his words seemed to, in the press conference at the end of the year, it seemed to make that the way that felt, didn't it? That seemed to be the case, is that you felt like, okay, maybe now they're, maybe they're now open to that. Maybe he's open to that. And I'm hoping he is, because if you can find the mid-tier deal, if we can get a deal that lands somewhere around the $25 million mark and you're paying Geno half of what the top end quarterbacks are being paid, I think that that's a good deal, especially if you can structure it in a way where the 1st and 2 year cap hits are really, really low. I think it can make a lot of sense. Anvil, I hope we can pick up Trenton Simpson. What are your thoughts? I like Trenton Simpson. Last year, he was played more as an outside linebacker, more of like they call it like a predator role in the defense, where you're kind of moving around all over the place a little bit, including at times rushing the passer coming off the edge. This year, he tried to be moved into more of the traditional inside stuff that you'd ask a middle linebacker to do, and he wasn't as strong with it. but he still has his flashes of moments. He's still a player with a lot of versatility and flexibility. I like what he can do in coverage as a linebacker. I think he brings a plus element to that. He runs like the wind, so he's as fleet of foot as you could absolutely want. He's a little undersized, but I do feel like that is also a little bit of where the middle linebacker's position is going into the future, where it's going to be more reliant on guys that can move in space than it is that you have fire hydrant hammers that can just knock guys out in the hole, so to speak. So I think he's linebacker 1 for me as far as kind of ahead of anybody else in this draft to a large degree, Anvil. I don't think that there's another guy right behind him on that talent scale of things. I also don't think he's in tier 1. He's definitely a tier 2 guy legitimately. But if you're talking about picking him around 20 or so, that's not the worst way to go. I'd be okay with that. James Earl Bones, Daniel Jones is going to get $30 million from the Giants. The market is what it is. We'll see on that. We'll see. It's possible. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. It will. Henry says you want to draft a Purdy to replace Geno instead of giving Geno more weapons to compete. Oh, you're asking somebody else? Jeff Logan says, I want Geno's contract to be easy to get out of if he does regress. That's why I think a 3-year deal is probably where you end up the likelihood of this deal, Jeff, because then if you're stuck in it 2, you can get out of it by year 3 if it's a 3-year deal. I would expect that's the kind of way this will settle out eventually. I agree with you, though. I'd like to have that flexibility, too. Immortal says, hopefully Jamal Adams is the defensive savior. Hopefully he can be. Hopefully he can just stay healthy. Holy moly. Jersey Picker, nobody wants Geno. Let's be honest. We are bidding against ourselves. Possible, Jersey. It's possible. It's hard to say at this point with that necessarily. Does a team like Tampa Bay that looks at themselves as being very close and still ready to compete with Tom going, do they look at that and go, hey, we'll throw him $30 million a year. We'll throw him $35 a year. But I think that, as John Schneider said about this in a recent presser, there is a price they'll go to. They're not just going to go to some place where, where it's going to, we'll pay whatever we got to pay. No, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to try instead to say, here's our price, Geno, take it or leave it. And if he says leave it, they'll go on to their option 2 at that point. Robert Pennington, what's up, my brother Rob? It's good to see you in the chat, man. It says $30 million average 3 years for Geno, $65 million bonus, maybe a void year. I wouldn't go up as high as 30. 25 is as high as I go. And if some team's out there that's going to be willing to pay him 30, let some other team go out there and make that determination at that point, in my opinion. So I wouldn't go that high. That's a bit too much for me, even with avoidable year, Rob. But 25, a little bit, yeah, a little bit less, yes. A little bit less would be nice. Jason Wolf, Jalen Carr is the perfect pick. I can't think of anyone else I'd rather have. Me neither, man. He's my number 1 guy in this draft. And Barco, don't know if you've heard about this, but the Ravens have been interviewing our quarterback coach, Dave Canellis, for their offensive coordinator position. Keeping in mind his success with Wilson and Geno, do you think we have reason to worry? No. I tend to feel like a lot of the work done by Geno has been the work that he's done in the background over the last 10 years to get him to where he's gotten as a player. Canellis has probably helped him, but I don't think that he's the secret sauce to Geno's success this year. I think Geno's the secret sauce to Geno's success this year. I also think that Wilson's was, I don't know, how much of the development factor Canellis brought into that. I think Wilson did get better as he aged and got into his prime. I don't know if Canellis did anything magical with him though either. I especially from the head up, I saw a lack of progress from Wilson in many respects that I would hope a quarterback coach would be helping to perpetuate forward a little bit. So I hadn't heard that, but I'm not worried about it. Mortal Technique, I see the Eagles move on from their Super Bowl winning coach quickly, and I wish the Seahawks did the same thing a long time ago. I think it's a fair point. It's a fair point, man. Or a fair sentiment, sorry. D-Nugget Brandon, you good with Jason Myers' contract? Nope. D-Nugget, I just posted a video yesterday on this, or 2 days ago on this, so I really go into some depth onto where I stand with it. But at the end of the day, you're paying top market prices for a kicker, for an overall middling kicker. It's not year in and year out that he's middling. He has his great years, but then he has his bad years on the other side of it. I don't want to pay for good to great when I'm only getting middling. I'm not going to pull my hair out over it. It's not the worst of the worst, but it's not a good deal to me, and it's substantial money to be paying a kicker. Erickson, our drafted rookies played so well. I'm in the pros. If we draft like that again, look out. Look out, man. Look out. James Earl Moans, Jones might get more if the Giants decide to give Saquon a 3-year deal and they have to franchise tag Jones. Yeah, I could see him more franchising Jones if it comes down to a $30 million cost. I don't think that you look at 1 year of performance with Jones and be like, oh, you know what? Let's go multiple years at $30 million versus, hey, let's just go 31.5 on a franchise tag and let's make sure that he can come back and continue to progress. I don't see the Giants doing that. Robert Penning, you hot for Locke? I'm not as hot for Locke as some, Rob, but I'm okay if they want to go with that option. If Geno becomes too expensive, I'll go with the background. I'll go with the backup options. Anvil, Gervon Dexter out of Florida around the second round. My thoughts? I don't quite have Gervon Dexter as high as some others do. There are some people that have him even in the first round discussion of things. I'm not there. He's a rugged 3-tech defensive tackle. He mainly uses strength and explosion to create his pressure. He just mano is just straight up beats guys. So he's a very much kind of traditional sort of 3-tech in that realm of things. Good instincts, knows where the ball is going. I do think he can get pushed back quite a bit in the run game. I do think he's a little bit top heavy. And he is a little bit slow out of his stance. So he's a guy to me that I knocked down just to the third round a little bit because I'm a little bit worried with maybe some of the openings that'll be there with him in the run game. And then also with the fact that, again, he's not brilliant as a pass rusher, just really good. But he would be an amazing third-round pick if we could get him there. I kind of marched late second, early third on him is where I've got him at. But he's a fun player. And one of the few, got a lot of 0 techs in this draft. He's one of those few real pure, like Kalijah Cansey. He's, pure 3-tech. Purified 3-tech. Devian, I think some of you guys are missing an important point. Leadership and companionship. Do we really want to wait for a new quarterback to build that? You can't just buy pieces and hope for magic. Look at Denver. Good point. Devian says Geno's already in the gym working on next season. His team loves him. They do. You got your guy. Smiz, I don't think Locke is going anywhere. I don't think he wants to leave, especially after seeing the success Geno had this season. It's possible, Smiz, but is there a team out there that looks at Drew Lock and says, hey, that could be Geno Smith 2.0. Let's throw him a 3-year, $20 million deal, or let's give him a 1-year, $7 million deal and let him compete with a rookie and see if he can start. And then he gets an actual chance to compete to be a starter versus if you re-sign Geno Smith, he's then going to be earmarked to be your backup quarterback, and he probably wants an opportunity to go out there and be a starter. I don't know if a team would provide him that, but we might be seeing an NFL landscape that is kind of changing as far as the quarterback position is concerned, because we're starting to see some of these lesser quarterbacks actually have some success behind really solid starting units in front of them. And I think that we could see the same in this case. Tommy says, keeping Pete around this long reminds me of how my wife keeps clothes that don't fit her anymore in the closet because she remembers how good they looked and someday they might fit again. That's a great metaphor. I love that. That's good. Devion, I think a lot of Hawks are sleeping on Locke now, just being greedy now, where most of the fandom was begging he win over Geno at first. Yeah, I think maybe potentially Devion. Got to make sure we can bring him back. I mean, he is a free agent, so that he's not just under no club control, so to speak, in that respect of things. But I like him a lot, and I think you can duplicate the same type of stuff that you've done with Geno. I don't think he's the only guy that can bring us any kind of success. But I'm kind of good with going a variety of different ways here. I'm not necessarily sold or married to one way or the other. Jason Wolf says, I'd rather have Mazi Smith than Gervon Dexter. Yeah, you can make the argument that, though Mazi doesn't give you the pass rush, he's giving you more of a plus defender in one element or another, being run defense or pass rush, whereas Gervon Dexter gives you a good pass rusher, but maybe there's some question marks there in the run game with him. So I do have Gervon a little bit higher for me, Jason, in the third round versus Mazi Smith, because Mazi Smith doesn't rush the passer at all. Gervon does at least play a little bit against the run, but I could understand having more of a preference that, especially with the team needs and not having any really good 0 techs on the roster as we do right now. And we are going to start to kind of wrap this up, folks. I'm going to be coming back tomorrow for another stream. So we're doing back-to-back stream days. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up and get into kind of the last couple of questions you guys got in the chat here, as I do have someplace I got to be here this evening. Scooby Snacks, the way Myers' deal was bad. He is way too inconsistent from year to year to be worth the money he got, and he seems to have his best years just before he is due a new contract. Coincidence? I doubt it. Yeah, not coincidence. Not coincidence. And that's my take on it as well. Absolutely my take on it as well. Jason Wolf, Myers is worth his contract like Disley was worth his. I don't know on that one. Disley provides consistent value when he's in there playing. He had his recent health, health injury stuff going on at the start of his career, and I know he missed the last couple games this year, but he also played, I think, all 16 games last year, or at least the last couple of years. He's been pretty consistently out there on the field, and he gives you a lot from the tight end position. It's not a monster contract at 3 years, $24 million. You're not paying Will Disley, Jason Wolf, the equivalency of the tight end contracts that are out there on the books versus what you're paying with Jason Myers. Jason Myers is right now the second highest paid kicker in the sport on average per year basis. Disley's not even close to being that from the tight end position. So it's really not an equivalent contract, even though Disley is being paid more. I would also offer that Disley gives you more consistency than what you get from Myers. When he's on the field, he's going to run block, he's going to pass block, and when you throw him the ball, he's going to catch it. Right? That's what you need a tight end to do. And especially if you want to have a complete tight end, you're going to pay a tight end to be a complete tight end. That's just what he's giving you. Seahawks Gaming, Trey Flowers, Kerry Hyder, Frank Clark, and Carlos Dunlap have a chance for a Super Bowl. Indeed, they do. Trey Flowers isn't starting. He's kind of their big nickel guy. You're going to probably see him on Kelsey next week, though, and that might be a big key to that matchup, is how he can play him. Jake Waldman, I agree. Geno is better than Dak. Tommy Eden Flowers was starting for the Bengals, but I think he got hurt. Oh, tough. Well, maybe he won't be there. Erickson says Locke still learning. Jedi still needs another year. I could very well see it. I mean, the thing with Geno is he's 32 and he's had the 10 years of the quiet work in the background to fix himself and get himself right. Drew's only been in the league for a few years. So maybe it takes a little bit more, to your point, some maturation process there to get himself into the same place where Geno's gotten to. James Earl Moans, if you don't get some linebackers and interior offensive linemen, it won't matter who the next quarterback is. Agreed. I would like to attack that first and foremost. I mean, I'd really go look at the lines first and then linebackers, but all of it needs to be addressed. Anvil, Wilson, or Murphy? I think Wilson. Thoughts? I go more Wilson, Anvil. Murphy, to me, is just, I've got some more question marks with him. I've got question marks with Wilson too, but I like his physical upside. I like his potential. And if I've got two players that I'm not completely sold about on a pick at number 5, and I'm like, I don't really love either, but there's not a lot of great picks to be had here, and I can't trade back, and I got to pick one of the two, give me the guy with the top end upside at that point. Even if he's a little bit more riskier, I'm going to go for the upside then. And I think Wilson's got that over Murphy just a little bit. Murphy's fun, but he goes quiet too often. Mortal, I think Geno played better than Dak against the Niners in the playoffs, but like Dak, the turnovers killed it. Yep. I agree, man. I also think it's a little of a different situation too, though, Immortal, because why do those turnovers come at those points? They kind of came because your offense is feeling like they got to score every possession. Certainly the Cowboys did enough on their side of it from defensively to make you, from an offensive standpoint, feel a little more comfortable and not needing to push those throws into tight windows and to have to carry the day offensively, because your defense was able to kind of muster up some fight and resistance, which our Seahawks defense was not able to do in that game. I think that would be the one kind of key difference in there, though, too, because that's what drew to me those turnovers, was Geno trying to make a play, feeling like he's got to kind of score every single time. Erickson, yeah, Pete will drill ball possession into the team again. I'm sure he will. Tommy says Dak isn't very accurate or mobile or spot the line. He's a really nice mid quarterback. Yeah, very, very mid. Very, very mid. Miss D Nugget, we should trade down a Mr. Irrelevant pick. We should, man. Tommy, I'd love a linebacker with Parsons' skill set. Not under the illusion there is one in the draft. I think we just need a linebacker that can be that versatile, or teams are going to expose our linebackers again. It'd be nice to have. I think Trenton Simpson can do some of that stuff for you, Tommy. He's nowhere near Parsons' level of talent, but he could do some of that stuff for you. Absolutely. So I could see that working, man. I could absolutely see that working. Devan, they were forced to score after that last game. There was no trust in that kicker. If the kicker was trustworthy, they would have won. Hawks saw that and paid Myers on the spot. There you go. There you go. David, yeah, I wish the Niners lost too. They're going to keep going, though. Ugh. Are they going to get to the Super Bowl? We're going to have to watch the Niners getting to the Super Bowl. Ugh. And yeah, gaming, Micah Parsons playing middle linebacker and defensive end is insane. And doing both at a great high-end level. It gives the Cowboys a kind of a 2-for-1. And we had a little bit of that once before in a guy by the name of Julian Peterson. And we brought him over from the Cowboys, for the Niners, and he did the same kind of stuff for us. He was more a will linebacker, but you could put him as a defensive end too, and he was a great pass rusher. So it's very valuable to have 2-for-1 in one position. It's nice. Very nice. Poop Dog by Brando. Go Hawks. Your pick, Brando, Niners or Phillies? I'll go with Philly. I think Philly's got enough finally to both challenge Purdy and do enough offensively to score more points than you saw from the Cowboys today. So I'll go with the Philadelphia Eagles. How does the Seahawks catch up to the Niners talent-wise? Seems they're stacked at every position. No, I mean, they're not stacked at every position. They got a lot of top-end talent. You're going to do it with having 2 drafts, picking, twice in the top 10 and having like 7 picks in the top 2 rounds through the first couple. So that's the main way you're going to get that done, Anvil, that's how the Niners did it. They went out there and they got to pick really, really high. But you just got to be good in the draft, man. You got to have drafts like you had last year. Erickson said, agreed. He played his tail off most of the game. Playoffs might got into him. Next year, dude, look out. Empower Code, thanks for the stream, Brando. Appreciate you. Thank you, Empower Code. Appreciate you too, man. I thank you so much. And we will go ahead and put a button on this at this point. I will be back tomorrow, folks. We're going to be discussing John Schneider and getting into a little bit of his recent thoughts that he had in an interview here with 710 ESPN. I thought he dropped a couple of real interesting nuggets that I want to go over with you guys tomorrow that not only look at what happened with this team this year and where we've gotten this year and why this rookie class was so successful, but why their draft process is going to potentially be really good also moving into the future because they've more established a better benchmark for success in their process and the way that they go about their business. So do please be on the lookout tomorrow, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to be coming back live with you guys at that time. We're going to be doing some real big discussion about that as it lends itself well into us being able to look a little bit further into this offseason and where our Seahawks are going. Please do, if you guys get a chance, hit that like button for me. Just a little small thing. I would really, really, really appreciate it. It does help the channel grow tremendously here as we're just right nudged up. We're about a couple hundred away from getting to 11,000 subscribers. So please do hit that like button if you can, if you like what you're listening to here today. I will be back tomorrow, 5 o'clock. I appreciate everybody out there in the chat. Chat was great, as you guys always are, with some nice, lively discussion. And we'll be back tomorrow with some more of it. As my intention here this offseason is to try to do some more shows. Might be a little bit less time period so I can bounce back a little quicker. Don't have to rest the voice and whatnot. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be doing some more shows this offseason. I appreciate you guys. You have to watch the Niners go through and keep winning, which sucks. But free agency's on the horizon. The draft is on the horizon. I'm going to be covering it all. Stem to stern, as they say out there, as the captains say on the boat. So I hope you guys are here hanging with me, as you guys always are. I really do love talking Hawk Shop with you, as I always do. So we'll be back tomorrow, but even when you got to watch the Niners win today, okay, don't you ever forget, okay, even as the Niners are riding high on their horse, feeling real good about themselves, don't you ever forget, we're coming back around here, okay? Like I said, they're in their Super Bowl window. We're heading to our Super Bowl window. We took that team in the Super Bowl window into the back end of a half and had them sweating. We can only imagine next year the kind of fight we're going to be able to put up with all that much more talent that we are there and able to implement. So keep the faith, my fellow Seahawk fans, and get excited for the Seahawk future. I appreciate you guys, but I don't want you beyond all else to ever forget. Go Hawks.